So first on our agenda is a public hearing amending the village code of chapter 280 taxation to add article 5, granting exceptions to volunteer firefighters and ambulance corps. So the local law number 1 of 2024, amending local code chapter 280 taxation to add article 5, granting exemptions to volunteer firefighters and ambulance corps workers, and being enacted by the village board of the Village of Washingtonville, Orange County, New York. The village board as follows: Section 1, purpose and intent. The purpose of this local law is to add a new Article 5 to the Chapter 280 taxation of the village code to authorize an exemption up to 10% of the assessed valuation of the primary residence of a qualified volunteer firefighter or volunteer ambulance worker in accordance with Section 466-A of the New York State Real Property Tax Law. So can I have a motion to open the public hearing? Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So now we're open to the public if anyone has any particular questions on this exemption. Yep, Paul. And if you can you stand, just name, address,
Yeah, you know
etc.
me. Paul Lang, 10 Bakery Lane. Great law, with some clarification to be even better. It's just, in section 1, it directs to benefit an individual from a firefighter or ambulance worker. So, in a situation where husband and wife, married couple, people living together, own the property, if one's in the ambulance, one's in the fire, how does that work with the exemption? They get one exemption?
It's my understanding it's one exemption and it's a total of 10%. Because this also carries through, the school district passed it recently,
Yeah,
the
right.
county passed it as well as the town. So it is a maximum of 10 across the board.
All right. It's a good tool for recruitment and retention, and when the fire and the ambulance corps go to the assessor each on the annual certification period, I hope that there's some kind of a minimum standard. This is a great reward, perk, however you want to call it. It's recognition of service done. Thank you very much, firefighters and ambulance workers. It's recognition, but there should be some kind of minimum requirement, I would think, for both fire and ambulance.
What kind of requirement are you thinking?
You know, I don't know. That's up to you know, minimum. If I'm a fireman or an ambulance corps volunteer, I answer one call today, and you don't see me till next year, and he's, you know, in the firehouse with me. He's looking at me. We're both getting the exemption. Why?
Well, the exemption, and we are presented here with some fire department members and our commissioners, but there are rules and regs within the fire department, and this will be approved by the powers that be at the fire company. So if a person isn't pulling his weight, or if there's a problem with whatever, then that person would be not eligible to be as an active and a member in good standings to take advantage of this.
So I'll give it back to you, the same question you just asked me. What requirement? What's that requirement?
Minimum, you'd have to be a fireman for 2 years, and the details of, and a member in good standings. And from the firehouse, we would get the list, they would know, and they would go to the town hall and fill out the proper paperwork for the exemption.
All right, yeah, and I spoke to someone at the fire department. I'm satisfied that something like that's gonna be done. What's the estimated cost to the village for this?
You know, I've asked the assessor that, and it was difficult for him to come up with a cost percentage.
School district
He
did a
said, you
very
know,
good-
based upon the people, the houses that they live in, their assessed values, he really couldn't give me a number.
School district did a very good presentation, and they based something on 100 firefighters, or ambulance workers getting into it, so, but it's be interesting to see but it still has to be paid.
Correct, and in Washingtonville, I believe we have approximately 35 members, all right, so,
Minimal.
yeah, minimal at the end
All right,
of the day.
thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else have any comments in regards to this local law? Okay, if not, could I have a motion to close that public hearing?
Motion to close.
Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Close the public hearing. And with that, we have a resolution. At this meeting, Village Board, Washingtonville, New York, was conveyed on January 24th at 7 p.m. And that the following resolution is adopting local law number 1 of 2024, amending the village code of chapter 280 taxation to add article 5, granting exceptions to volunteer firefighters and ambulance corps workers. Could I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Christine will need to process that.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
doesn't appear that Steve's here, so it would have passed 4-0.
I'm sorry, correct, thank you. Yes, and I apologize, Steve has been out ill with a very bad cold for the last 3 weeks. So, my apologies, and thank you, Chris, appreciate that. So the motion will pass 4-0, 1 absent. Okay, we have another public hearing authorizing the property tax levy in excess of the limit established in General Law Municipal Law 3-C. So the enacted by the Board of Trustees of Village of Washingtonville, Orange County, New York, Section 1, the legislative intent of the local law is to override the limit of the amount of real property taxes that may be levied to or by the Village of Washingtonville to allow the village to adopt a budget for the fiscal year commencing March 1, 2024, that requires real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit as defined by General Municipal Law 3-C. So, we have a motion to open the public hearing. A motion, to have a second? Have a second, any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh. I have questions about it.
Yeah,
Sean Hegarty,
just-
4 Belvoir
just
Drive.
getting that. Okay.
On here, I don't know how much you plan on raising it by, but on the letter you sent out recently, you stated that you were left a mess by the last administration. Then, you guys are looking for a huge raise. I don't know if everybody knows that. You want 40,000,
Right.
20,000 for the deputy, 16,500 for everybody else on the board.
Okay,
Is that gonna affect this percentage going over?
no.
So this is, if that's not gonna affect
Well,
it going
if-
over,
if we
why
can-
would we need to raise it over?
If we can, why? Because it's more than 2%.
Okay, so there's some other questions I had spoken to you about water from the water department, bulk water being sold. You said there was $80,000 or $90,000
If I can
sold.
just interrupt you for a second, this has nothing to do with the budget hearing yet. If we
But
could
it-
just go,
Well, you were asking about voting over, and I wanna know why you wanna vote
Okay.
it over,
all right,
right? That is part of the budget.
it is.
If you don't vote it over, maybe you gotta take some things out of the budget. Maybe the raises. Or maybe you gotta lower the raises.
Okay, so if you want to ask your question, I'll answer your question.
Why are you going for this much money? Why do you send out a letter saying we're in bad shape? You also tell me you're making money on the bonds for the 4.5 million, and I stated to you, you should put that back into principal. And you said, oh, we have other ideas for that. I asked you about the bulk water coming out of down by the DPW, you stated it was around $80,000 or $90,000. I said, that should go back to principal only on the sewer plant.
Yeah.
And you said, well, what,
All right.
there's
So,
not, it's not
to
in your
answer that
budget where it's
question,
going.
We do one at a time, so I don't get too
That'd be unusual for you
backed
to
up
do
in,
stuff.
I agree. So, the water that they're taking is water. That money that we generate, we take as revenue and we put it back into the water fund.
Does that
The
state
sewer
in this
plant-
budget you're showing, does it
The
show
sewer
it?
plant is a separate fund and can only be used for sewer functions. So let's put it this way. If somebody was coming in and they had a tractor trailer and they wanted to dump sewage into the sewer plant, and we charged them $5,000. That $5,000 could go into the sewer budget and could go against the principal of that loan, yes,
So where does the water money go?
into the water fund. We have
Is
three
it
funds.
stated in here,
I don't know which.
in your budget?
Yes, it comes in as revenue and it goes to the water fund. And that's where the water is being deposited.
Yeah, when we get to that
And I can show
point,
you the
you'll highlight
statements
it
where
for
the
me?
money is.
Could you highlight that when we get to the water fund? Which line actually it is?
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah. You had other questions? Danny, you can stand up for this?
No, I'm not putting for our court, mentioned the sewer plant. Are we currently taking sewage from
No.
outside companies and generating revenue?
No, we're not.
We're not.
No.
We have the capacity to do that.
We have the capacity to do that, and we're actually talking about it. But there could be, there's obviously pros and cons, and we're weighing both of those. If there's anything we could do to pay off that plant faster, pay the principal down, is a good thing. We would not hesitate to do that if it's safe. And we're not taking someone else's garbage and potentially have pollutants in it, which could cause us a problem in our plant. So it's something that we're looking at. Any other question? Question?
Yeah, Michelle Miranda, I live at 11 Market. A question. See that property tax revenue is increasing almost 412,000, yet your non-property taxes is being reduced. One of the things I was looking at is shared services, and one of the shared services is audit.
Is what, I'm sorry?
Audit.
Audits, okay.
Okay, my question is, and I see the auditor sitting right here, my question would be, if there was a mismanagement or misappropriation based on the previous regime, what was your budget to actual variance, and what was the misappropriation or mismanagement based on?
If I may, there are a lot of these questions, if we can get through our presentation portion of this, I think some of these questions will be answered. And if not, then you can ask away and we'll do it. Because Brandon, we're not quite there yet, but Brandon's gonna do basically a presentation for you on the budget process, things that have been discovered through the auditing process. We have several auditing firms in here right now. Brandon just represents one who is helping us collect the data and the information. And again, unfortunately, none of this is on particularly any kind of computer system software. A lot of it is bank statements, things that we're trying to figure out the puzzle at the end of the day. But Brandon will go into the details of that in a little bit. And then Leslie will be going through the treasurer and the budget and, you know, what we've been doing and bringing that forth to you so you can know what's going on.
Okay,
I'm gonna give a little presentation just about some of the things that we have uncovered over the last maybe 10 months now.
And, Brandon, will your presentation include remediation and better controls, and what controls you're going to put in place to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yes.
Benny?
Like this gentleman just previously said, maybe we should see the presentation before we authorize the tax agreement.
Well, I'm not,
Why
let's
would we
put it this
authorize
way.
it when we don't know if we need it yet?
No, you definitely need
We
it.
haven't seen it though.
Well,
So,
we get it, but it doesn't hurt. If we were raised it 2%, fine. If we had to go over 2%, we need to do this. Because if we don't, then the difference of the increase that is out there, we have to take that money out of the budget and we have to put it into a special account. We're not doing this because we want to, it's because we really have to. And if we didn't have to do it, and I think 99% of the communities out there do it just to be safe, because if you do go over, then you're gonna pay a penalty.
That's right. The law authorizes you to go beyond the cap, it doesn't require you to go beyond the cap.
Correct. So it's not a situation where we're gonna be hurt by it. Okay. Any other questions on 2%? Okay. If there's no further questions, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close.
Second? Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4 and 1 absent. With that, then, we have the resolution from the village board, Village of Washingtonville, to convey on January 24th at 7 PM. The following resolution was duly offered and seconded. Resolution adopting local law number 2 of 2024, authorizing property tax levy in excess of the limit established in General Municipal Law 3-C. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Have a second, please? Second. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4, 1 absent. Okay. Next, we have a resolution 182 for the adoption of local, well, actually, I just covered that. My bad. Yeah. Thank you. Next is a resolution of 184 to authorize the public assembly permit of the Kiwanis Club for Washingtonville Flags for Heroes to be placed at the Firemen's Memorial Park. The flags will be put up on March 18th and removed on July 6th. The ceremony honoring the heroes will be held on Saturday, June 8th. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0, 1 absent. Next is a resolution 185 to approve the intermunicipal agreement regarding vehicle maintenance between the Village of Washingtonville and the town of Blooming Grove. That's effective 1/1/24. Have a motion, please?
Motion.
Have a second, please?
Second.
Any questions, comments? Yeah, Paul?
Paul Lang, 10 Baker Lane, on that IMA,
Mm-hmm.
how much is it gonna cost us? Are we gonna save money with, can you read
Yes.
the resolution without, is that the resolution you just read?
Yeah, that's the resolution.
So how much are we paying for labor? Are we paying for labor?
$60 an hour.
Alright,
And anywhere else that we have brought our vehicles to, and it's been at least 100 to 120. And if the vehicles are under warranty, that's where we bring them.
Are we
back
paying
to the
for parts?
dealership. Pardon?
parts also?
Yes, sir.
Parts and labor?
Yes.
Storage fees for tires?
Storage fees? No
Yeah,
storage fees.
winter tires, they take it off the vehicle?
We normally store them.
Okay, we used to store them down there. So we're saving money on it, you're saying?
Well, we're saving half of whatever the repairs we
I,
have.
and I don't, not to get ahead, but this is for DPW vehicles, correct?
Police,
Police,
DPW, trucks, everything.
DPW.
All our vehicles.
Okay, so the only thing I see in the budget is under law enforcement, $18,000 for vehicle maintenance in law enforcement. I don't see anything in the DPW line. So I'm just curious.
Well, you can address that in a second.
$60 an hour, you said, right?
60.
So if we do,
60.
this is at Central Garage,
Yes,
so if we do pay taxes in the town,
yes.
Under street maintenance, street maintenance.
do what?
There's a street maintenance line in the.
What's that? Street maintenance, that's street maintenance. I'm talking about vehicle maintenance.
There's not a separate.
The only thing I saw was, for snowplows, $5,000 for snowplows. It was $18,000 for, under law enforcement for vehicles.
Street maintenance equipment, that includes.
So they bundled under that code, and just let them know we put in there.
So under the street maintenance equipment line, 5110-200,
Yeah,
that $103,000 includes maintenance of equipment.
okay. So
It's inclusive in that.
It's in there.
number.
all right. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, we had questions, are there any questions on this board? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, 1 absent. Thank you. And we have resolution 186, authorizing the polling place for the Village of Washingtonville elections on Tuesday, March 19, 2024, to be held at the Village Hall, 9 Fairlawn Drive, Washingtonville, New York, polls will be open from 12 noon to 9 p.m. Have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0, one absent. Thank you. Hmm? I don't think I have it by memory. Okay, so now we'll move forward with the public hearing. So can I have a motion to open public hearing on our 24-25 budget? I'm sorry. No.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second? Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, so we're officially open. Hang on a second. So, we gave you handouts, obviously. We will be posting all that online as well. If anybody wants a copy emailed to them personally, just let us know on the paper. We'd be happy to do so. Okay? So, first I just want to thank everybody for coming. Frankly, this wipes out any previous year of anybody coming to any budget meeting. I also want to say, and hopefully it's because of our communications with the community since we took office in April. You know, we recognized some issues. We wanted to make sure that we reached out to everybody via communications, via bringing this up at pretty much every monthly meeting or budget or financial statements and issues that we were having. So, again, thank you for really being here because, you know, at the end of the day, it takes everybody to understand what's going on, and it's, again, wonderful to have you here, so thank you. If I may, from an introduction standpoint, we all have nameplates up here, so we're all pretty recognizable. Leslie is our treasurer, as I've already mentioned. Chris Martino is our DPW superintendent. Chris Finnegan is our water and sewer H2O manager. We have Brandon Kennedy, he's from DST. He's with one of the auditing firms who will be doing a presentation. And our police chief, Chief Zaccaro. Okay, and we're all here to answer questions if, you know, somebody can't answer. Hopefully, if you have questions for the department heads, you know, feel free to, you know, ask away as well. Okay? Any questions or anything on that stuff? Okay. So,
Wait, you got a question there?
where?
Not
Oh, I'm sorry.
nothing real important, but is Brendan Kennedy Brendan or Brandon?
It's Brendan, but I go by Brandon. I've been called Brian. Someone once called me Brain. I prefer Brandon over Brain, but I'll respond to pretty much anything at this point.
You're not late for dinner, that's it.
Nope, never missed a meal.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Tom? What are the stars next to trustee, deputy mayor? All through here, there's like 3 stars next to certain people and things.
It just means it's allocated across the funds.
So that's like, they get money from different parts. Okay.
Okay, so just to give you a brief rundown on bullet points of things that that we saw as we came into office on April 3rd at 12 noon. Some of the things are, there's no particular order, no particular priority. It's just things that we uncovered over beginning probably, once we got our feet wet a little bit, probably mostly in April. So one of the things that we discovered out of previous budgets, 20 and 21, or I'm sorry, 21 and 22, is that the previous administration had wrote $1.6 million in checks in 2 weeks between the election and us taking office. And that money was coming, our budget year is not, its fiscal year ends February 28th, begins March 1st. So when we took office in April, those checks written for $1.6 million came out of our budget. So right out of the bat, we obviously realized that we're gonna have a major shortfall. And the reasons for a lot of that is that the bills were just not being paid correctly, and I think some of the presentations will bear some light on this stuff. But we've been paying bills for 22, 21, and 20 over the last 10 months, and we just found another vendor that we just tried to order and said, sorry, we closed your account because you didn't pay your bills. And we're waiting to find out how many years it goes back before we can then make that payment so that we can move forward and order the pieces and parts and things that we need. So that was a huge hit. And one of the things that was a real big highlight out of the 1.3 million in the general fund was the insurance payment of $600 and probably close to $40,000 that was back paid from 2022. It went back probably 6 months. We just don't even understand how they'd even kept us insured for health insurance for all the employees. That was absolutely huge. And there was 38,000 out of the water fund, and we had 427 out of the sewer fund. Another practice, no invoices were approved. They were all paid by the previous administration. No resolutions, no warrants, no following of any financial responsibility in that respect. When we realized, again, they took out the 1.6, with some quick calculations, and trust me, we were paying more bills and finding more things to be paid than I've ever seen in my life. And we kind of came up with a calculation saying by October of 2023, we're out of money. The other big thing that they didn't have was a treasurer and accountant for 6 years. Leslie came aboard in 2023 in October. And her main focus was trying to gather and put information together for the audits. Lack of documentation for the annual audits for the general water and sewer funds. There's a report that's supposed to be submitted to New York State. It's called an AUD. That stuff was not presented to the state because they had no annual audits. The audits, as I'm talking about the next line, that was yet to be done was 2020, 21, 22, and 23. Now we've submitted our information with Brandon's help of 2020 has been sent to our normal auditor, PKF. And he is now in the process of gathering the information for 2021. Because there were no budgets submitted, Moody's, the New York State rating company, AAA, AA, whatever rating you're gonna be, they removed our bond rating because they had no financial data to give us any kind of rating, so they pulled it. So basically, we had probably the worst credit you would probably wanna see. When we got in, we had all sorts of issues with some financial institutions. They would not take checks. I went to the bank, I tried to get a credit card. They said you have no financial data, goodbye. Could not do anything there.
Still don't have a credit.
And we still don't have a credit card, and we'll never have a credit card because it's just not, but there was software that we actually needed to purchase for the accounting software. One of the other big things, department heads that we had over the 6 years or so, they were not in the budget process. The budget was created by the administration, and they had no input to creating their particular budgets. We had a rental of a generator at the sewer plant for some reason, was not needed. The one that was there was newer, updated. We bought it years ago, when I might have been on the board back then, in anticipation of the sewer plant being upgraded. But for some reason, this board decided to go get this rental piece of equipment from United up the street in New Windsor, and they were paying almost $6,000 a month for 5 years, and basically wasted $360,000. The 23-24 budget, they had a slight increase of 3%. The treasurer said that the increase, that the minimum increase that they should be doing is 25%, because the cost of living and just not keeping pace with things, that's kind of where we were over 6 years. And if you took 6 times 4 being 4%, or in some cases, cost of living was 7% a few years ago. I mean, the increase was, it would have been in the 20%. Other major concern when looking at that last year budget, while we were sitting on that side of the fence, with the revenue amounts, they were overinflated, and the expense side of the house was underinflated. So there was no rhyme or reason, and we really, at the end of the day, started to mistrust whatever numbers were there. Also, grant monies that came in from FEMA, that was from an IDA project where they had the storm, Bull Road reconstruction, the $435,000 came in and went out. We're not 100% sure where all that money went, because this year we had to spend almost $60,000 on parts and pumps for that FEMA project. That money was gone. They overspent it, and we had to take it out of our coffers to make that payment. Other things that were kind of commingled and missing was a police fund of about $50,000. And ARPA, that was a gift that came from the federal government during COVID, and I believe the checks were in 2021, 22, 2 separate checks totaling $600,000 deposited into our main checking account, and that money disappeared, spent. Now, with the right thing with these things that should be done, when that was a gift, you know, put it towards the principle of the sewer plant. Fix the sewer plant roof. I mean, 1,000 things that could have been done, but it was dumped in this account, and checks were just being written against we call it the multi-fund or A fund. Between the water and sewer funds, there was lots of commingling of data or money, which means if the A fund, meaning the general fund needed, that was short cash, they were taking it out of the water fund or the sewer fund. And obviously what that creates is a void, and that money is supposed to be paid back within a year. No money was recovered. I think when we came in office, our water fund,
We had 30,000 in one, 70,000 in another, and 40,000 in
Right.
another, and it was right after a billing cycle.
so those funds were depleted. The facilities charge that we just increased on you guys, $58. It was supposed to be higher, they only raised it to $37.57. That's supposed to be paying a $20,000 bond every year to pay for the sewer plant. Where they had that money, they were about $150,000 to $175,000 short of making that $400,000 payment. So that's why you got that increase of $50 to $58.
The grants that were never received because of paperwork.
Well, and that's the sewer plant. So talking about the sewer plant, when the sewer plant was done, there's an agency called EFC. And when you get that money, they give the money to the village. As payments or bills come in, they're documented, reports are filed, sent to EFC, and then EFC will reimburse you the money. Back in 2020, previous administration stopped filling out the forms. EFC is sitting, or slightly was sitting, on $1,040,000 of village money. So the previous administration was paying out of the coffers of the A fund, the G fund, and the F fund, meaning water, sewer, in general, they were writing checks out of these accounts to pay contractors for the sewer work and the sewer plant work that was being done. So what we've been doing, once we discovered that, with Brandon's help, we were able to recover $190,000, and you know what it required? My signature. And in 3 days, I had a wire of $190,000. We've recovered another $24,500 from the bond company legal department. That came back, and we just sent out, or we'll be sending out shortly, there was, for the bond council, Unistat, their fee for doing the bond work for the sewer plant was $17,000. That was never recovered, so we just sent out, we'll be sending out that bill to EFC, and they can fill out whatever paperwork they need to, so we can get reimbursed on that. And that'll be $17,000. There's two other, the big one is an electrical company, which since has gone out of business. They owe us about $335,000, and we're working with another engineering firm who has a very good person on their staff that deals with these quarterly reports. They're very, very cumbersome, very, very, just to understand them is a science in its own. So they're helping us finish that piece so we can potentially get that $338,000. That will be going, some of that money, and the money that we've already collected, will be going to repair the roof that's been leaking at the sewer plant for the last, I don't know, Chris, how many, 5 years? And the rest of it, depending on what emergencies we might have to still do, will be going to the principal of that loan, and we'll pay that down. Okay? Let's see, we covered tax limitation, constitutional tax limit. New York State has been sending us very nasty grams. They've been looking for data for the last 4 years, asking for it since 2022. Never received anything. They're just, we're just putting at bay because no one ever explained to them that audits were never done, and this is the reason why you don't have that information. We have come across many examples of handwritten checks by that board. And none of this information is in QuickBooks, not that it really means that much, because they weren't using it as an accounting system. It was just a place to print checks. So that's, let me see if there's anything that I kind of haven't covered.
Sweeper grant,
I'm sorry?
sweeper grant.
Okay, some money that we are getting back, it was a grant out there for our sweeper that we use. Years ago, and back in probably 2014, 15-ish, the mayor at the time, David Hines, and I rest his soul, he passed away. He was going to get a sweeper. He wanted to work out a municipal agreement with the town of South Bloomingdale, the village, and the town of Bloomingdale. Upon him leaving office, the other administrator coming in, that deal fell apart. The village went and bought that thing for $250,000. We pursued the grant, and we're just waiting for the check. We pursued it to the point that I just again filled out the paperwork. They didn't question where that money went or what happened to the municipal agreement amongst three. They just said, okay, just fill out the paperwork. You've still been approved. And so I filled out the paperwork. In March, we're gonna get $250,000 for that sweeper. That we will probably discuss and maybe put aside for a potential truck for our DPW, because we've lost two vehicles that were non-repairable crack frames and had to be surplus. I think you also are aware that we've been working on the deficit financing, which has kept the village afloat, and we needed to borrow that money because of the deficit and information that we've been explaining here along the way that has created these voids and lack of fund balances and had eroded any kind of fund balance that would have been left over, that could have been carried over to the previous years, and that'll be covered by Brandon and Leslie as well. So some actions that we've taken, obviously, I talked about BST and the auditing firm of PKF, stepping up big time to help us out with this monstrous task. You know, again, with no data, no computer, I can take you to my office, I can show you a rack of 3-ring binders that you'd shake your head and how you're gonna find this information. And all those boxes over there are examples of looking for 2021 information so that we could get to the point of having something that we could submit as a budget and for the audit itself. Department heads now are responsible for taking care of all invoices and payments per the procurement policy that we passed in April, May. The department heads are also reviewing all financials. We have weekly meetings to go over priorities and financial issues. Excuse me. We had found inconsistencies in the water and sewer billing systems, tremendous. You want to cover that one?
So we have specific laws that cover our water and sewer that, first of all, desperately needed to be updated. One of the things that came to light was you would just raise your facility use charge. Several businesses were severely undercharged. They have 30 businesses in a building and they were charged for 5 sewer units. The other thing I can tell you is meters last somewhere from 15 to 20 years. There's never been, and I can't even blame just the past administration, there's never been a plan for replacement. It's always been just if it's broke, fix it. So at this point, take a look around this room. For every 10 people you see, 3 are getting underbilled because of bad meters.
What about being overbilled?
You know what?
Either, in both directions.
Yeah, and you know what, when you're overbilled, you'll reach out, and I want you to reach out. Don't take that the wrong way. If you feel you're being overbilled, we want to hear from you, because we've come up now with a policy, is we're gonna check the equipment. We're gonna make sure that it's our equipment that's wrong, and if it's wrong, we will fix it. But we don't know if people don't call us, and we have to come up with a plan to remedy this. We can't survive when our sewer plant is processing so much sewerage, and yet the wells aren't billing for it.
Yeah. And that really does go in both directions, and we've had hundreds of issues and complaints about water too much, water too low, from everything. And there were so many problems with the software, inconsistencies of when we would do an estimate of a reading. It was so incorrect, it was like 20% below what the actual readings were. So we've been making adjustments to the software. We've been sending our guys out to change those meters that are broken and making appointments with the residents to fix these things. And we've been making adjustments. You know, if it's not right, we go into the system, we track it, we go back through it. And if we owe you a credit, we owe you a credit. And we're not, you know, we're not playing games, we're trying to do, you know, it's a business. We're trying to do the right thing for everybody. There's just a ton of issues that have not been touched in a long time.
So, and just to highlight it, to highlight it, when the meters are read, it's handwritten in a book. If they can't read it, they'll put a note in there for me, faded, broken, can't find. And that's okay for a quarter or two. We have accounts for 3, 4, 5 years, haven't had an actual meter reading. And the software was set up that every time we did an estimate, it was 70% less of what the previous estimate was.
Yeah, but on High Grove, a lot of us, our water bills are 700 plus. And I'm not the only one on High Grove.
Again, we have told you, I can't say it enough, if you feel that your meter is not working correctly, you need to reach out.
They're brand new. We went through this last
Even
time.
brand new meters have problems
Okay,
sometimes.
guys, if we can, let us try to get through this, and then we'll get to the public comment, and then we can talk.
I mean, you mentioned grants, for other things. I know that some of the smaller towns in the Hudson Valley have gotten grants to get brand new meters for their towns and
Yep.
villages. So that might be something you may wanna pursue, you know, maybe.
We are.
We
We're
are.
working with a couple of companies right now, and we're going through an RFP process. Town of Wallkill is actually going through the process right now, through an RFP, and we'll be able to piggyback off of their RFP to save us a lot of time and a lot of money. And we're looking primarily right now at a system called Badger. But if it's okay, if I could just finish, we'll get through this, and we'll attack and stay as long as you guys want. All day. Let's see, current union contracts. The other thing that we've been doing is going through all vendor contracts. Steve Pressure has gone through the utility contracts and the utility bills for Orange and Rockland. We have found a bunch of accounts that were no longer active, but still getting billed for this stuff. So all those corrections are being done. Did the same thing on the telecom side. We found phone lines that were supposedly working, supposedly there. And after we went through the audit, we found out that this stuff is incorrect. So he was on the phone with Frontier and Orange and Rockland. We cleaned all that stuff up now, and we rearranged the bills so you know exactly what bill is for what area. They were very, very kind of indecisive. When you got a bill for $700 and it said, you know, parking lot. What parking lot? So all that stuff's been taken care of. We also, part of this is that, and Susan's here, we actually removed a part-time building inspector position in part of the process in costly because we're in a moratorium and there's not a lot of building, not a lot of permits required, et cetera. So we basically removed and eliminated a part-time position. There are several clerk positions that we did not fill either because of the budgetary issues that we were going through and not really understanding how much money we were gonna have towards the end of the year until, again, we figured out it was October. So we didn't wanna hire people as badly as this office needs something. Christine, our village clerk, is the only full-time employee. And the board has picked up, picking up basically everything else from planning, zoning, comprehensive plan, doing, you know, clerk duties, water sewer billing. Brenda's doing grants, HR handbook that hasn't been touched, which is really needed. Again, we hired a BST, after treasurer's responsibility. Sorry, guys, let's take off. We took the treasurer's responsibility. She was doing the audits. We made her basically the treasurer to take care of all the daily activities. And we purchased the Edmunds financial software in May because there was no system available. And we're going live on that on February 15th. So we'll be on a computer system. Reports will be able to be generated and we'll be in a better shape. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to Brandon. Would you like to click it?
I'd like a clicker.
Just use that right now. Flip it. Sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Just a clarification, please. You said that, the treasurer came on in October 2023. But the treasurer that's sitting there now was sitting in this room on February 27th, 2023, at the budget presentation.
I'm sorry, 22.
22.
22,
Okay,
my
so-
fault, yeah.
And just as an outline, on your budget, you put down that information on the previous fiscal years is not reliable and therefore not presented in this budget. So if we had the same treasurer from that budget and the same treasurer on this budget,
Well,
why is that one not reliable and this one is?
well, that's the same person?
I wasn't the treasurer at that point in time. I was hired to help get the books in order. So when this administration came in, they appointed me as a treasurer to do the day-to-day stuff.
You weren't the treasurer
So I
on,
was not the treasurer at that point in time and
Hey.
handling the day-to-day activities.
so they have to go
The
back
previous
and
mayor
redo that, because that's how you were presented as a treasurer.
was. I was not. What?
No, I'm just agreeing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
can we get the AC or fan on?
I turned it down to 68. I walked in, it was 80. I don't know what the heck happened. You know what? You know what you can do? Yeah, we'll crack a door and we'll crack that back door. This one here? No, just the front ones. It said 80.
Work all day.
Christina's copy, multiple. Yeah. Is that in here? I don't know. No, I don't. Christina gets my copy.
I sent it Tom yesterday. Megan was saying what Megan and Tom said, no, they didn't. Where? You did? I sent it, no, I took it. I said,
30.
like, don't do any.
33.
Don't do more. I did.
All right, we're ready to begin. We got the doors cracked. Thanks for putting up. I don't know what happened to the heat. But there was a question. Go ahead.
I understand that you're getting rid of positions, trying to save money, like what you just discussed. But is it true that we're hiring more police officers?
Well, we had 2 vacancies, and we're looking to potentially fill those vacancies, yes.
So it's not in addition?
No, it's a replacement of. Yes. Yeah, I mean, we held off on hiring those positions, again, because we weren't sure of where we were gonna land, to be completely and 100% honest with you. We were nervous that, you know, if we didn't get this funding from New York State, I'd say, you know, that we wouldn't be here. And there was a chance almost back in, and I think Brenda will cover this, you know, a couple of years ago, it was the same situation. And by the luck of some, the ARPA funding and some other things that came into the budget, they would have been zero balance.
Just one quick question regarding what you just
Do
read
we
through.
need to have 2 more vacancies filled? I mean, we do have town,
Well, we get to that point, you can certainly ask the chief. I mean, we can get there.
Yes, Mike Graziano, 3 Lark Street. Just a quick question. You said you're attempting to secure the $800,000 from EFC. Is that, do you think you'll be able to recover all $800,000 from the state, or
I'm hoping, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I was mentioning before, we're going after the 300 and some odd thousand from the electricians that were working on the sewer plant. And we think we can recover that money after I had a conference call with Delaware Engineering. They have the expertise of the people that do this every day. I sent her all my emails and documents from April. She took a day and a half to review everything, and she started to piece it all together. And she's thinking, yeah, we'll be able to do that, because it's our money, you know? It's our fault that we didn't fill out the forms to get the money from EFC, right? All they need is the paperwork.
why we do the money, I don't understand the whole situation. What was EFC? What is that all about?
I can explain a little bit.
Yeah.
You got it? Okay, good.
I'll hit you.
Okay, good, thank you.
We'll try and, I think they want to do questions at the end, but we'll try. I have this joke lined up like, gee, I wish they like turned down the heat, they could save some money, but, sorry about that. You know, Tom and I should have shared notes, because some of the things I'm talking about, Tom covered, but I'll go through it my own way and let you know why I'm here. First off, I don't live in Washingtonville, and if I did, I'd probably be sitting where you are, and not standing up here talking. But my name is Brendan Kennedy, I'm a certified public accountant. I'm a partner at BST & Co. CPAs. BST is based in the capital region. We have government clients throughout the state of New York, ranging from little fire districts to large public authorities. I've been doing this for 21 years. Our firm consists of a little over 100 people, and we have over 135 municipal clients. It's really important to BST. It's a big chunk of our revenue. I'm telling you this just to give you a little background about how specialized and complex governmental accounting is. It's different. Okay, we'll get into some of the things that I discovered as we go through here. So why am I here? You got a new mayor. You got a new board. You have an official treasurer now. And what was determined was that your last audited financial statements, so firms such as BST, in this case we have PKF O'Connor Davies, they're also a very, very good firm. The last auditor's report, that's a report on your financial condition, was for the period ending February 28, 2019. That's the auditor's report that would be used in a bond rating. It'd be used to obtain financing. It'd be used to obtain grant funding. It's essentially a snapshot of your financial condition as of a point in time. That auditor's report was issued on August 25th, 2022. That's late. Okay? So that's a little bit of a flag right off the bat. Audits should be done as quick to year end as possible. Okay? Because otherwise you're auditing and opining upon stale information. By the time this audit report came out, we're 2 years down the line. Okay? The last report, financial report, this is separate from your financial statements, that got filed with the state comptroller's office, and this is only because Leslie was able to glom this together, is for February 28th, 2020. That means we have not filed financial reports with the state for 2021, 22, 23, 20, gonna be 24 pretty soon, okay? Those reports are due anywhere from 2 to 4 months. For a village of our size, we might get 2 months, but we can always extend it for 4. Again, quick financial information, because that's how people make decisions. So, the administration noticed we hadn't done audits, we haven't filed reports with the state, and then all of a sudden, huge chunks of money went out the door. The mayor already mentioned this. So, our tax year and our fiscal year, we're not a calendar-based municipality. Our fiscal year runs from March 1st to February 28th. There's a couple of you out there, I think it's kind of weird, but hey, that's Washington. Freeport's the same way. Churchville too, other villages. So we noticed large payments going out the door in March and April. What happens in March and April? What did you guys do? Paid your taxes. So money came in the door, we wrote large checks for stuff that hadn't been paid a while ago. okay? And one of the biggest ones was NYSHIP. NYSHIP is the insurance program, so all the insurance that the employees have here, if I had to guess, was at risk of being terminated. Because I can't think of any other reason he paid it so quickly, or it got paid so quickly, because as I could demonstrate to this administration, this had been going on a long time. There was a big balance going on. Okay, so all of a sudden now we're kind of caught up. The other thing this administration noticed was past due invoices. Be careful with those boxes, we're still using those. That contains some of the payments that have been made over the last 3 or 4 years. As the mayor's noticing and Leslie's noticing, there's invoices still from previous periods that are rolling in. People won't give us, people won't do business with us because we didn't pay their bills, okay? That's still getting resolved to this day. I kind of hope we were past that, but we won't.
We just got one 2018 this morning.
2018. I wouldn't be here if my bills weren't there. So, anyways. So, obviously, they ran the numbers, and they realized they were in trouble. Okay, we're using money that was set aside for 23 and 24 to pay old stuff. Okay, and so they did the math, and if they kept on top of their bill paying, like a good government should, they would have been bankrupt or illiquid by October. So the mayor's already highlighted that this is mostly a part-time village. You know, people are doing their best. Leslie is the treasurer. There's no way Leslie can catch up on a part-time basis on 4 years of financial reporting, dealing with the external auditor, dealing with the reports, and also doing the day-to-day accounting. The day-to-day accounting is hard enough to begin with. So at that point, I had actually received a phone call from your attorney, Bill Jackson, notifying me. We touched base, and here I am helping you out. I am an auditor by trade. I spend about 75% of my time auditing municipalities like you. The rest of the time, I take on special projects such as this. In this case, I'm working with the village to help analyze all of the accounting records and transactions that have transpired so that we can compile financial information for those periods. So we can evaluate what our deficit was over those periods. Interface with your external auditors. So I'm more of an internal auditor, if you will. I'm working with PKF O'Connor Davies. I'm in regular contact with them. I'm supplying them data. I'm obviously keeping these folks up to date and trying to help them get through what they've been hired to do. Yeah, quick question.
Was O'Connor Davies the one that signed off on the financial statements prior to this that were sent to the comptroller's office? And I have a question about the comptroller's office. Do they not have to do financial reports? I'm an accountant.
Sure.
Right? I'm a controller with an aerospace.
Nice.
So,
Good chance you're smarter than me.
so I'm wondering why the comptroller's office has such a disparity in noticing this out of the 3 years. As you said, you have to have financial statements done after fiscal period, right?
Yeah.
So who was I'm just wondering, so O'Connor Davies that signed off in 2019, was it them? Because they're a good firm.
They're a good firm. Their delays are likely due to the condition of the accounting records. Okay, so I'll talk to you a little bit, about what things look like and how many entries it took just to get these financial records to look like an actual set of government financials. Okay, why the state comptroller? I'm sure they got nasty grants. If you don't file your AFR, now it's called an AFR, you get an automatic notice. Hey, your AFR was due, you haven't filed it. I'm sure there was all kinds of emails that went out, like on autopilot from OSC to this municipality, probably handwritten letters, explaining the delinquency. It's all automated. A lot of the things like the tax limit, the budgetary reports, all that, spending limitations, those are all computer programs in OSC's website that you would just, type your numbers in, file it. And so they would have gotten automatic notifications. Yeah. Okay, so it became pretty obvious that this was too big of a job to tackle for just a part-time treasurer and a mayor and administration, okay? All right. So I am working with the mayor. I'm working with department heads. I think everyone here has gotten an annoying email from me. I'm also reaching out to vendors too to try and get data from them. I'm reaching out to your attorneys. I'm reaching out to your financial advisors. Essentially anyone that has anything to do with the village, at some point they may have got a message from me. My goal is to go through the trial balance documentation. So just a few things. We were using QuickBooks, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. That is not a governmental software. It's a great software, but it's not designed for municipal accounting, which I'll tell you is different. So I'm going through each fund, and I'm trying to evaluate whether it is compliant and how to get it compliant with OSC's basis of accounting or the governmental basis of accounting. There's an accounting and reporting manual out there. I'm sure Leslie's flipped through it from time to time. It's a public documentation that OSC publishes. I'm comparing balance sheet account reconciliation. So if you think about something like as simple as a cash reconciliation, right? You take your bank statement, you subtract your outstanding checks, right? Bills you paid. Everyone's had a checkbook at some point. And then maybe you got a deposit in transit. I don't. No one's giving me money. So you got your bank balance, outstanding checks, that's your reconciled balance. That was not done. That is a 101 accounting control. I see the accountant over there shaking her head. It's as simple as it gets. If you don't reconcile cash, there's no guarantee that you made sure all of your revenues and expenses were recorded in the information system. That's simple. If your municipality or client or business or someone you're dealing with hasn't reconciled their cash, time out. It's a problem. So I'm helping recreate some of these balance sheet account reconciliations, even beyond just the cash reconciliation, looking at accounts payable, accruals, all the things that go into accounts. I need my accountant to nod over.
Obviously, there weren't any accruals being made,
Yes,
right?
none,
So,
yes,
okay.
okay. So this next one under the balance sheet account reconciliations is critical. Expenditure cutoff. All right, so in accounting, you record an expense based on when the goods and services are received. So if you're a lawnmower and you mowed lawns in May and you you send a bill out to your customer in June, say I'm the village and they mowed lawns for me in May because Chris was out partying. That is a May expense, okay? Even though I'm paying it in June, the service took place in May, and that's when that expense belongs. And so we would accrue for that, or we would write an account payable. So that would reduce our budgetary allowance, and then we would book a corresponding payable for that amount. That was not happening. This another one is even just as critical, because this is how you get real mixed up. We've talked a little bit earlier about funds. The general fund, you got to think of it as a column. It stands on its own. The general fund is funded by taxpayers. Okay? The water fund is paid by water customers. You could live in the village and pay taxes, but you could be on a well. Could happen. Happens in my village. You could be in the village, have municipal water, and maybe you're not on the sewer system. Okay? Each fund and those charges have to stand on their own. I know if you're in all three, you don't really care whether your water rate or your tax rate or whatever, because it's all the same to you. But conceptually, And legally, they need to be itemized. So it is critical that the money that comes in and the money that goes out is recorded in the right fund. Not only the right period and the right account, but in the right fund. It's an opportunity for mismanagement. It's very easy to pay things out of one fund that pertain to another fund. Very easy. Very easy. Okay? I've already mentioned that I'm working with the attorneys, payroll. You have Kincaid processing your payroll. He's been very helpful. Everyone that I've encountered so far is interested in getting this resolved. All right, so going back to just some accounting things so you can try and understand again what's going on. So we were using QuickBooks. I ain't knocking QuickBooks. I have QuickBooks. I got a few rental properties upstate, and that's what I use to track stuff. But it is not designed for those silos like I was telling you about, okay? It does not have municipal billing software in it. It doesn't have the other features. It doesn't have tax billing. So what you had is QuickBooks kind of as a depository for transactions when they got booked. Not all of them did. And then you had separate sub-modules that were used. We've mentioned the water and sewer billing, and all that stuff then has to be manually entered into QuickBooks. And it wasn't. A lot of it was, but there was a good chunk that wasn't. Okay? Anytime you have these non-IT interfaces and you got to manually add data, another opportunity for errors. And as the administration noted, we have a new software system going in that is conducive to municipalities. It's designed for municipalities. And that's going in about a month. All right, so I talked about the funds. General fund, taxpayers. Water fund, based on your water consumption. Sewer fund is a little bit of a two-part, you have a fixed fee. What's the term called? It's not uncommon. Usually it is earmarked for debt service. And then your sewer bills are also based on consumption, but there's no meter going out. That would be pretty gross, right? We don't want that. And that would be unfair too, because you never know. So the sewer billings are generally based on water. Okay? And so if we're screwing up the water bills, literally the sewer bills could be shit. Okay? This last fund is kind of a budgetary tool. It's called the Capital Projects Fund. And this Capital Projects Fund, you almost got to think of it like a savings account, kind of. All right? It doesn't generate revenue. It doesn't sell you anything. It doesn't provide you any services. It's where you would put money for if you issued a bond for a fire truck. Okay, when you issue the debt, the cash would go into the Capital Projects Fund, and then when you pay for the fire truck, the money goes out. At the end, if the village said no more capital projects ever, there should be no money left in that, okay? And what you'll see is, because of the timing of the money from EFC, which is a state authority, this Capital Projects Fund was illiquid, and the only way it could be funded was through transfers of resources from the other funds, while we waited and hoped that the money would come in from our grantors and grantees. And as we already noted, we're still 800 grand short. That's part of the deficit. Okay? That's part of the reason is we didn't get that money. It could help. Good. All right. Revenue is recognized when earned and measurable and available. So you know, a lot of our revenue is non-exchange, so it's almost like the cash basis. But, you know, for the water and sewer, when we send out a bill, we're gonna book a receivable, means you owe me, and we're gonna book some revenue. And then again, the expenditures, like we talked about, is when the liability is incurred. So that's when we receive the goods or the services. So when the goods and services are received, even if we get that bill that next month, we have to code it, the date to when the services were provided. So, let's talk about 2020 and what I've done so far. I know that's a little scary because we're into 2024 here. Again, Leslie was doing two jobs, not sustainable, excuse me. All right? And so she started 2020, and then she gladly handed it off to me. All right? 16 adjusting entries. That's on top of all the work Leslie did. I don't know how many entries Leslie posted. We don't want to know. I had to make 16 material adjustments to the financial information presented to me to get it into a US GAAP OSC compliant basis. Okay? Again, that excludes what Leslie did. There's also certain long-term assets, like updating your capital asset records. That's outside of that, but basically I went through where you left off in 2019. I added everything you bought in 2020. I emailed Chris the list. Chris, here's a list of all your stuff. What's gone? All right, annually you should be updating your inventory of capital assets so we have an accurate figure. So we've done that. Okay? Many of these entries were material. And so we did, it happens when you find an error in the prior period. There was a question about 2019. As I was going through your expenses, some of those boxes, some of those invoices should have been coded to 2019. Okay? So right off the bat, 2019's equity or residual assets minus liabilities was overstated. There was a number of entries related to EFC. EFC essentially is a conduit borrower. So they go to the market, and there's a combination. So I'll mess up the percentages. But let's just say our wastewater treatment plant cost $15 million. They might have given us $3 million in grants, and we had to borrow debt of $12 million. Don't quote me on that, it's just ballpark. I had to make a bunch of entries based on all of that activity. And it's all confirmed right from OSC. Every dollar they sent us, EFC, excuse me, every dollar they sent us is accounted for there. And that's when I was looking at this EFC documentation, I said, you know, you got $1 million sitting at the state, $1,040,000. And that's when we started contacting EFC. There's a woman there, Brenda Lee. Inherently, I loved her because of her name. She's very helpful. And in the one instance, it was as simple as the mayor signing a document. So when you do a major construction project like this, one of the holdups is you have to have MWB involvement. MWBE means Minority and Women Business Enterprises. I actually have that with some of my contracts. So your prime contractor might have been so-and-so, but they have to subcontract X amount of the work out under this arrangement. Very, very common at the state, just part of their MWBE goals. You have the option of having H2M, who was your engineer for the project, handle and administrate all of that paperwork. They would have charged you, but they would have done it, and we chose not to. Had you done that, that $800,000 likely would be here now. Now we're tasked with years later trying to recover that money. There was a number of adjustments for interfund balances. Accounts payable. We booked expenses when we paid them, not when we received the goods and services. This is a huge, huge issue. That major NISHIP payment you made in March and April, that covered 6 months. So I believe the last time you had paid for your health insurance was September, and so you then had to pay for October through April, 6 or 7 months. And this has been going on a long time. Debt service payments weren't recorded. I could pull those off of, they were paid, the money is gone, but we didn't book it. Okay, I had to go through your water and sewer receivables, and then, it's a bit of a reclassification, but we did a number of lease financing activities. We leased our police cars, financed them, I should say, over a couple of years. There's nothing wrong with that, but you didn't book the debt. Okay? So the debt needs to be booked. So, lack of cash reconciliations, immediate red flag. Immediate. Okay? You have no, if you don't reconcile your cash on a monthly basis, you have no assurance that your revenues and expenses are being recorded. Interfund balances, interfund transactions. So occasionally this happens from time to time. So picture yourself, you're the water fund, all right, and for whatever reason, maybe you had to do a repair, and your quarterly bills are going to go out next month, but you ran out of money. It's okay, you've got it budgeted for, but you just, right now you're short on cash, and so maybe you borrow $50,000 from the general fund. That's okay, you can do that. And then you send out your bills, and your money comes in, and you pay the general fund back. But if you did a snapshot, you should see a $50,000 receivable on this side and a $50,000 payable over here. Those were completely out of whack. I had to go through, figure out who owed who what and why. Okay? One of the best controls this board can do to monitor your finances is look at your budget, which is a legal document. By law, they have to adhere for that. They cannot spend over what has been budgeted. If they do, that's a violation. They're supposed to pass a budget amendment, right? So if you budgeted $10,000 for something and the cost was 11, and it's okay, let's just say, maybe we got an extra $1,000 in services. By law, they have to increase that budget $1,000 and explain how they're going to do it. That was not done at all. And because accounting record, there might have been budgets passed, but because there was no good accounting records, there's no way to tell whether we were compliant with the budgets over that period of time. Vendor invoices. They weren't paid on a timely basis. And so, I got a question from a board member. She'll remain nameless, but I'll give you a clue. Her last name rhymes with Schmalski. She wanted to know why there was no money in that sewer charge, right? There's supposed to be that money you pay, right? It's supposed to go in there and then we use it. We use it for our debt service. That's what it's supposed to be there for. That's what it was designed for. And I said, gee, how do I respond to this? I said, the only reason you have any cash in any bank account whatsoever is because you did not pay your bills. All right? That's the only reason you have money. Your liabilities exceed your assets. Okay? You can't pay your credit card bill right now. So you had to go to the state. Get a fake credit card. So invoices were not paid timely. couldn't find all your invoices. Yeah,
Brendan, were vouchers used to make these, various payments?
no. So, the question was, were vouchers used? So vouchers, and there's examples of a voucher, on the state comptroller's website, this is a good question. A voucher would sit on top of the invoice. Okay, so imagine somebody sent you an invoice for lawn mowing. On top of it would be a voucher, and usually the vendor would sign it. I got the town of Westerlo, a little town up in Albany County, they won't pay me if I don't sign the voucher. It won't happen. And so I have to sign and certify, even though I sent them an invoice. And then there's places as to where it gets coded, to what account, what budget line item. It's essentially like a lead sheet, if you will. And it explains how it's getting paid, what fund, and I have to certify to it as a vendor, and essentially it would then go to the village board for audit, and they would do their audit of it, and then it gets added to AP and paid. The answer is no. No. A basic internal control. 101 internal controls were not being adhered to. Cash recs, vouchers, budgetary compliance, 101. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just gonna, as a lead into internal controls, so now, your new ERP system that you have, does it have modules for AR, AP, procurement, fixed assets, all of that? And what controls have you built into that, this is now remediated?
Okay, that's an advanced question. Leslie's handing, I'm on the back, I'm trying to fix the old stuff, and there's gonna be time for questions on the new stuff. Edmunds, I've heard of before. I gotta imagine, there's no budgetary function in QuickBooks that we used. I would imagine there's a budgetary function in Edmunds.
There's a budgetary module, AR, AP module, fixed asset module, and then there's like a requisition module.
Right, that's what you.
Yeah, so that all the department heads are gonna enter their requisitions, and there's
So
gonna be a
they're gonna issue a
3-point
PO then?
approval. Excuse me?
You're gonna have a PO that matches
Correct.
internally with the
Yep,
invoice?
so once the requisition gets approved by 3 people, myself, probably the mayor and a trustee, it automatically will generate a purchase order, and then it will be emailed to all the department heads, so they have a copy.
And then the receiving report.
Receiving report, right? Because the goods, that way you validate that the,
Right, so the goods are received and now
Sounds-
matching the PO.
sounds better already, right? Okay. Okay, so, one of the things I've been tasked with doing is recreating financial statements so that you know where you stand. And so I went through, with the team, we went through all those boxes. Okay? I have all the data from QuickBooks, and we set precision levels, because I couldn't look at everything. We'd be here forever. So I looked at every invoice paid from March 1st, 2020 to July 31st, over $2,000, just as a metric. A little bit arbitrary, but it got us good coverage over the cash that went out the door. I could only find 80% of the invoices. Okay, that means the money's gone, it went out the door, and there's no invoice to tell me whether the right amount was paid or not. And not only that, it makes reconstructing accounting records hard, because now I have to guess as to which fund it belonged to. We talked about how important that was. We're one village, but it matters what fund it gets booked to, and I don't know what period it pertains to. So should that have been accrued as a liability as of February 28th, 2020, or does it belong in the 2021 reporting period? Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying that you have 80% of your invoices and you paid 100% of something.
Yeah.
That other 20%, how do you verify that it actually went to anything or a legit bill or?
Can't. We called vendors. We called them. Some of them.
Do we have any way of tracking it through checking? Or was some of these things cash?
The accounting records may not match the bank balances.
It could have been a bogus purchase, in other
That's it, that's.
Could
what
it have
I'm trying
been?
to get- That's what I'm trying to get at.
You know, it could have been. So far, what we've looked at has, you know, if it's a Joe the plumber invoice, and I'm just picking on it. Huh? Yeah, and they were pretty cool about helping us find invoices. They were very responsive. You know, then I knew it was probably water or maybe sewer and not general. So, you know, there were things we could do. It's not like all of the, what I would tell you is it's not like one vendor, you know, this guy's bills, all of his were missing. It would be like, I got 8 of his and 2 were missing. So there's no instance where an entire vendor, none of their invoices are gone. I had trouble finding Orange and Rockland street lighting invoices. They weren't in the folder. Turns out they were in a folder stuffed in the mayor's desk. That's just where they ended up. They didn't make it in the boxes. Okay? So invoices were not maintained. This is just record keeping, keeping things organized. Yes?
Quick one, who was signing these checks?
The mayor.
Previous mayor, previous mayor?
Previous mayor.
Thank you.
Yes?
Okay, when you have insurance in a municipality, all of your policies are auditable except the property policy. Now, since we need to certify accounting statements that you have to give to the insurance carrier, they will estimate and you have to pay a premium 2 to 3 times what you paid. So did you find anything with the insurance that had excess amounts? Did the insurance balance out with the payment?
We interestingly, it's funny you say that. We used Marshall Sterling, who's a pretty big broker.
Yeah, that's a broker, but they may do things.
But those payments were pretty consistent, year over year. So I didn't see any major fluctuations in those. But oddly enough, those were not in the box either. So I have to call Marshall Sterling and get the insurance invoices. But if you looked at what we paid in 2020 versus 21 versus 22, I don't believe there's a big discrepancy.
Yeah, but it's in the audits. When the audit is not done, they will charge 2 to 3 times that annual premium, and you have to pay it.
Who is this? This is.
These are in your insurance policies, your audits that you do.
We did not appear to. We didn't appear to get.
Every single day.
Sounds like a miracle, honestly. Yeah, we didn't.
You will
But,
in the insurance area.
yeah. Yeah. When I looked at the Marshall Sterling invoices, that's our broker, again, they're not the insurance company, you're correct. It didn't, at least for a couple of years, they didn't look like they were out of whack. They didn't look like we got whacked.
Sterling wouldn't be involved with the audits. The insurance company.
I understand that, but we pay Marshall Sterling, that's who we pay. Our checks were labeled to Marshall Sterling. So we paid the broker.
Yeah, something's overpaid, I'm sure.
Could be.
Pat?
I spent my whole career on it.
Okay.
And I could tell you that we have not received any information from Marshall and Sterling in regards to something like that, if it was a penalty because of that. I have not seen anything.
You probably won't. It's the insurance company that would have notified you.
That's what I'm talking about. The insurance company is Marshall and Sterling, they're the broker. But we haven't received anything, any letters like that indicate that there was a penalty or, and it's a great question. We're gonna look at the, our policy and we'll question it, but we haven't had anything like that.
Yeah, I think you'll probably find some interesting things out there.
Oh, I'm sure.
So.
We do every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah, we do learn a little bit every day. So let's, just this last bullet on this slide and then I'll keep going. So now we have an external audit going. PTF O'Connor Davies, they're very reputable when it comes to governmental auditing. And I can't give them all of the audit documentation they want because I don't have it. Okay? They ask for a particular, if they ask for a Marshall Sterling invoice, you know, I know what they paid because, well, money went out the door and we're still insured. I can't find the invoice. All right? If I can't find the invoice, I don't know if the amount was right. If I can't find the invoice, I don't know if it was in the right fund, in the right period, and I've now made I've made judgments based on 21 years of where I think that cash outlay belongs. They're not going to give us a clean audit opinion. Are you surprised? Okay, good. I don't know what kind of opinion. It's possible we may get a disclaimer for 2020. That's the worst possible opinion an auditing firm can issue. Our goal is that, particularly as we get to the time frame where we actually have, a CPA helping us, is to at least get a clean balance sheet opinion for 2/28/23. And then, now that we have a full year of good accounting records, we'll know exactly where we stand, exactly, at 2/28/24. It's just gonna take a little time to get caught up, all right? And so the goal is to get a clean auditor's report for 2/28/24. Not guaranteed, but we think we can do it. Might not like the numbers, but we think we can do that. Here's just to show you a little picture of, and a couple things. The mayor mentioned there was just a printing error when my slides got physically printed. This whole presentation will be made available on the website, okay, because there are missing pages. Swear to God it was an accident. Swear to God. This kind of shows you, fund balance is another term for equity, okay? It's just the governmental accounting term. And equity is if you took all of your assets and you subtracted all of your liabilities, what's left over? All right, so here's what we're showing for 2020. Part of the reason is because I did a real deep dive into the past due invoices. So I made sure that any invoice that pertained to 2/28/2020 or older, which means we got the goods, we got the services as of February 28, 2020, has been accounted for in this position. Okay? And so you can see, particularly the capital projects fund, the decline. What I want to point to you is the sewer fund. Because it kind of looked like we were okay. Right? So what the hell happened with our sewer fund? And we just noticed this today. Again, we're still looking. So we issued a ban. A ban is a bond anticipation note. It's a debt instrument. It's a short-term debt instrument. We issued a short-term debt instrument, and then it was for the wastewater treatment plant. It was on the up and up. It went through the regular legal process. Our attorney reviewed it. Our financial advisor reviewed it. But it was for the wastewater treatment plant. And then the intent, I believe, was to repay that ban as the EFC money came in, because this was supposed to be an EFC funded. But because of the timing, EFC doesn't just write blank checks. You gotta submit paperwork. Okay? They'll pay you. They will, and we're still hoping they pay us that money, but not without documentation, right? And that's why we're missing that $800 grand right now. So what happened is that ban matured, and we took, bizarrely, out of the water fund, which is incorrect, $620,000 and paid off the debt. I've since moved that deficit payment to the sewer fund. So sitting in that major change is a $620,000 debt service payment that's now sitting in our deficit. Theoretically, as this EFC money comes in, it's going to get deposited into our sewer fund and help relinquish that deficit. The problem is, we have more things to do in the sewer, we have leaky roofs and other whatnot. But that's an example of the liquidity issues caused by not getting paperwork in and out of time. And so the solution, as we ran out of money, was to not pay bills. And so, every year, everyone got raises, health insurance probably went up, whatever. And so, this deficit, which starts out at around 441, you'll see grow a little bit. It grows another $100,000 in 2021, and then we'll see what it looks like in 22, 23. So, if someone gave us $500,000, we wouldn't have a deficit, right? That'd be cool. We'd also have no money. So it's not as simple as saying you're short $500,000. You're really, at this point, you're probably shy $1 million. Because that $1 million would pay off all your old liabilities, and then you'd have some set aside for liquidity and bills and reserves and things of that nature. Okay? Just having a zero fund balance is not an acceptable practice. Having too much fund balance would mean you were overtaxed. That means the government had hoarded resources of yours and they're sitting on them. So, 2021. So 2020, I'm still working with the auditors. We're probably going to get our report in the next couple of weeks. And then it's on to 2021. I have started reconciling 2021. 2020 was actually way easier because Leslie did all this work. So I mentioned before, it took me 16 entries. It took me 30 entries to get to a position now where cash is reconciled, our interfund balance is tied, our debt service payments are recorded, our major revenues are recorded, our debt proceeds are booked. And so here's just the bullet points of the different areas that I worked on. Again, making sure each fund stands on its own, because it has to. Legally, it has to. You can see what I did to make sure your liabilities were correct. I expanded the time period. The last time I only went 4 months, 5 months after fiscal year end. This time I went all the way to February 23. And so a team of us, 4 of us, sat and rifled through every invoice, and we tried to categorize it into the right accounting period. Okay? The good news is, by this time, the wastewater treatment plant was completed, and there wasn't like there's these $300,000 invoices rolling in. It was, at this point, business as usual. But by the time I was done going through all the invoices, I had accounts payable of about $1.3 million. Whereas our cash was somewhere around $650,000 is adjusted. A good chunk of that 1.3 is your NISHIP payments, which is your health insurance. Okay? That's when the problem really started. It went from maybe 140 being backlogged up to, can't remember the exact numbers, but maybe $600,000. We only paid half our bills. The other chunk of that, a good chunk of it, is our retirement system invoices. And so again, the retirement system runs on the state fiscal year, which would be April 1st to March 31st. You get a discount if you pay it in December. The full balance is due February 1st or 15th. February 15th. We paid ours in, if it wasn't March, it was April. So we actually incurred penalties they charged us for paying late. Yes?
I'm sorry, going back to the wastewater plant, I'm new here, so
Sure.
I don't really know. How old is it? How old is the plant?
It was finished in,
Hi, Chris, so half the plant, we did an upgrade, we expanded our capacity, half of it, so now we have a brand new plant's about 3 years old, and we half the other facility's still 20 years old plus.
The other half of the facility where the roof needs to be repaired?
Yes, correct.
and I just do accounting, I do not do nothing. So we went through, we set the threshold a little higher because we expanded the time period in which we examined invoices. We went with a higher threshold of $5,000, and again, we went through boxes of data. We were here all day combing through files. So I have a pretty good, that's draft, that's not audited, not that we're gonna get a clean opinion on it anyway, but you can see our deficit increased by about $116,000. So again, here we are, transition, back invoices, forecasts. We were gonna run out of money. We couldn't pay our bills, and that's where we went through and got the deficit bond financing. I've never been through a deficit bond financing, but I've audited organizations that have. We should all be proud as New Yorkers that the state actually issued deficit bonds once. Some may recall the financial troubles that New York City went through in the 70s. The city of Troy. The state has since paid theirs off. Troy has since paid theirs off. It happens occasionally. In essence, the best way to summarize it is we got behind on our bills and we got to get caught up.
Now, do they charge an interest rate on this, on the deficit bond financing?
Oh, yeah.
And what is that rate?
Okay, good question. Because we don't have audited financial statements, our rate is 7.25% for a 1-year debt instrument. Market's probably around between 4 and 5 if you were double A. Yep. 7.25%. And it's not like there was tons of people begging to buy our debt. Okay? It's not like there was a long list of people waiting to get this money. So we were pretty lucky to get the offer we had. By the time we catch up, and we're caught up on audits, it will be a more attractive rate, I think, because this municipality is going to be under the thumb of the state comptroller's office for the next 10 years. Okay? Whoever is mayor, who's ever on the board, they're going to be dealing with the state of New York for 10 years. That balanced budget, I wouldn't worry about it. The state has to bless it. So these guys don't get to choose that much. So every dollar needs to be budgeted for, accounted for. You are under the microscope going forward. The dynamics have changed. Okay? So we've issued $4.4 million in deficit bonds. They're really bands because we're going to refinance them. Right now they're due in a year. We're paying a pretty high rate, 7.25%. We may or may not need it all. We don't know yet. To date, catching up on everything, all these past due invoices, all these payments, we've used $2 million of it.
We already paid for the money we use now, or?
You're paying on the full 4.4. So right now, 2.4 million is sitting in NICLAS.
And you're paying 7.4 on that.
You're paying,
Just
yes,
sitting there.
yes. But you're earning, at least for the 2.4, you're earning interest on it.
We're earning 5.5%.
Okay.
Okay. So for 2.4,
You're just sitting there, knowing it's there.
yeah, you're getting whacked for 2% rounding on 2.4 million.
So when you don't, if you don't use it, haha, probably, but what happens to that?
You give it back, and we'll take out bonds for the amount we actually need. But again, it's not just the deficit, we need to have a little scratch on top too, right? We gotta have a little cash in the bank.
And what does the state allow you to have percentage-wise?
They are going to certify toward deficit, they won't let us borrow for a penny more. It's very regulated. Like I said, you are under the microscope. Which,
Good, yeah.
you know what? There you go.
I have a question, is the prior administration, are they responsible for any of this? I mean, are they going to be held accountable?
No comment, no. I'm not, that's not what I'm here to do.
Well, maybe not.
But I think you can make your own deductions. Going through all those boxes, now granted, some of the invoices are missing, I have not yet found anything that I need to escalate. What I found is
Incompetence.
very bad accounting. I've seen it before, and that's why I'm here. This isn't my first rodeo. Where am I looking? In the back. Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, my question was just answered. If we're paying back all of the mismanaged money, that means money is missing. A cashier can't close out her register and not pay the store back. I need to know who's gonna be legally responsible for the money that we're paying back now.
yeah,
That's my concern, and you guys are doing a phenomenal job keeping us informed and trying to fix things going forward. But, who's going to jail for this? I'm gonna keep it as plain as I can keep it. We're whispering, but nobody's saying anything. And I'm a new homeowner,
Yeah,
this is
sure.
all new to me.
Right.
to go to jail,
Craziness.
and trust me, no one wants to see, someone in handcuffs more than some of the people behind me. But I'll tell you, to have a criminal act, you need a crime. And so now you're talking fraud. Fraud is really, really hard to prove.
The money's missing.
But the money's missing, where is it?
Well, the money's not missing, the money was spent.
On what? On what? We don't know.
The state auditors are in and they're doing their job. We will not,
Don't
we're
comment.
gonna let them do it.
You have invoices for the majority of the cash outflows. It's only a small percentage.
I think one of the points is that we didn't raise taxes like we should have along the way, and we've gotten ourselves into more of a hole. That's what people are probably not thinking, that we should have had some increases that
Systematic and
made it.
rational tax increases. Even if you had done 2% tax, even if you had done that, you would have raised revenues, your tax revenues 12% over a period of time, non-compounded. It's really hard. And I'm not getting into the politics, I'm just the numbers guy.
So what's the projected tax increase for us?
We're gonna get into that. Let me wrap up my part here. I'm not paying attention. So some of these things we've already talked about. One of the reasons you're shy money is because you're owed $800,000. If you can find it, if you can get it back, all right? We've already got 214 of that. It's possible you may not get it all, but we're hoping, now that the mayor's done some, when I wrote this, I didn't know the mayor was working with Delaware Engineering. I'm not an MWBE expert paperwork guy. I put numbers in boxes and, explain it. It's hopeful you'll get a good chunk of that. That'll help. Yes?
You had mentioned before that by law they were supposed to have done this.
Yes.
Well, if they broke the law, they broke the law, right?
Yeah.
Then they should be prosecuted.
we'll see. We have the state in, if they think we have, it's, like I said,
Just because you break a civil law does not make it a criminal infraction or a crime.
my lawyer just. And you know what's funny? As I was going through this, I'm thinking, it's amazing how long this kept going, right? And then what happened in 2020? COVID, all right. We had $600,000 land in our lap over a 2-year period. When that money came in, it was immediately spent on operations to pay those past due invoices. We're gonna have to atone for that sin because there's rules about coronavirus state and local physical recovery funding. Most places used it for capital purposes. Repairing a roof would have been fantastic. Ours was dumped into the multi-fund account and went out the door just like a regular operating
What's a
expense.
multi-fund account?
It's just our main bank account.
Just not nothing.
Yeah. So there's almost 600 grand that came in out of nowhere. Poof. Right? Then another 677 shows up. I trace this to state reports. You can go on to New York State Open Book. $677,000 showed up in FEMA reimbursements. You would have been bankrupt way before this if this almost $1.3 million didn't show up. Okay? It just showed up and it went right back out. Paying bastard. So it could have been worse. Like I said, we could end up with a disclaimer. I expect the deficit to get worse. Obviously, if we've used $2 million to pay and catch up, that's probably where we're gonna land. The more old crap that rolls in, the worse it's gonna get.
Well, stop searching for it.
Well, we're just trying to order like motor oil, and like the guy wouldn't sell it to us or whatever it was. So, this trend may continue. So next step is I'm gonna reconcile 2022, and then for 2023, we're gonna do a really, really hard balance sheet audit. I'll do a pre-audit before it gets to the auditors, so we know where we stand. And we want that, we wanna know what we really stand at 2/28/23, not that we don't wanna know the previous periods, so that we have a clean starting point. The only way we're gonna get a clean auditor's opinion is if we have a clean starting point. And we got a good shot at 2/28/23. And the goal, as I said before, is to get a clean opinion for February 28th, 2024. God forbid I miss a leap year at all. That's what we're targeting. So, we got new software. That's good. It has the appropriate budgetary controls. That's good. We have a multi-billion-dollar state on our back. We're making enhancements to internal controls. Even if you do the 101, budget to actual, cash reconciliations, tying out your submodules to your just basic accounting stuff that they teach us in school in your first year, we're going to be okay. When I put these slides together, I didn't have any conversations with board members, but there is help out there too. There's training. Elected officials need to know what their responsibilities are. Okay, I'm getting a little preachy here. They have an obligation.
Preach.
They have an obligation.
Preach.
There's certain rules they have to follow. They got to review invoices. Yes.
How many municipalities in the state that you work for or have worked for have city managers, town managers, village managers that actually know what to do in a town? Everybody steps up to the board.
Yeah.
They have no experience. The next administration's gonna come in, probably be in the same place we are 5, 6, 7 years from now.
You raise an amazing question. So the question is, how many municipalities have a village manager or a city manager or a full-time administrator? I don't have a good number for you, but you do cross a threshold where it becomes too complex for a part-time person. Okay? A part-time person cannot do municipal accounting. So, you know, I was kind of bragging a little bit about 21 years. That's 20 years of industry-focused knowledge so that I can stand up in front of you and talk about governmental accounting. You can't do that as an elected official. You can't do the books. Shouldn't do it. Shouldn't have it. You know, depends on the size. When you get to a certain point, they all got it. I'll use Lake Placid as an example because it's really far from here. They had a fantastic mayor, Mayor Randall. Mayor Randall made $6,000 as the mayor. He was there 40 hours a week. He was a full-time mayor. He was doing it for the love of the game. They're getting a village administrator now. Next administration doesn't want to do that. But it's something to look at. But that comes with money.
But I think you know everything's done right, correctly, the budget's getting enforced correctly, the finances are on top of the finances. Because I feel like, you know, we're gonna do this now, the next administration's gonna come in, where are we gonna be then? You know, it's like starting over, nobody's not gonna know what.
We're all gonna show up
You know,
to
we're real,
this meeting.
we're going forth with construction, nobody knows what's going on, nobody knows. You take that position, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have good intentions, but are
Yeah.
you actually trained to do the job?
Yep.
And that's why I think the village needs a manager. You know, I know we got the full-time treasurer, you know, she's doing the books.
Part-time.
I know, but it's, she's part-time, but, you know, but you need somebody to actually do the job.
You know, Vin, that raises a real good point. We've talked about this several times,
I know.
you and I. It is a big leap at the end of the day. Just for an example.
I know Walden has it, I looked at Walden, they have a village
They
manager.
have a village, yeah. I mean, you know, it takes everybody in this room and in this village to keep track of what's going on. If I was sitting out there like we were last year, and we were told we didn't have any budgeted information or audited files within the last 4 years, my God, if that isn't a red flag, then I'm out on some boat in the middle of the ocean. Why? That's the questions that need to be asked. And you need to be in the audience once in a while and pay attention to when things are filed. And we're being as transparent. And I'm not saying we've got all the answers, but I'm telling you that the experience that we do have, we caught 90% of this stuff. We saw the problems. We saw them sitting out there for months. And we had 10 people in the audience.
Right.
And we were told, well, we have $500,000 in the bank, and we have this, and we have that. It was fabricated. And at the end of the day, here we are. I don't disagree with the manager. To me, that's steady, but the biggest piece is your treasurer and your financing. And you'll get this stuff emailed to you. It'll be posted on the website. Our audited information, from head to toe, everything that we did today will be posted. When we get an audit from him or anybody else, it'll be posted. You will see exactly what's going on down here. No garbage, we're just trying to do the right thing for everybody in this room, and the transparency is what we said we would do right out of the box. We had no clue that it would be in the condition we're in right now. No clue. And when we opened the book and turned around and saw stuff, we were in shock. And it just got progressively worse and worse and worse. And this to me is at the point of the pinnacle of, we're done kind of talking about what happened in the past, but I think it's an educational piece that everybody needs to know that we have to be on our toes, all of us. Go to the town meetings, go to the village meetings, we send you stuff online to go to the county meetings. Pay attention to what the heck is going on out there and talk. And sometimes, social media can be a little crazy, but just pay attention to what's going on. Come down, ask questions. Here, can be 7 days a week. Call, phone numbers are published. Got a question? Ask the question. But it's up to all of us to do it. And, you know, a village manager could be $1.50 to $1.75 for a salary. Benefits, $225, $250.
For this size village?
Huh?
For this size village?
60 to 120.
Hardly,
60 to
or,
120, I
So instead of getting increases.
so I mean, the
maybe
information's
think
out there,
about that.
but it's not cheap, but if we're paying attention and we have things that are published when they should be published, and the audits are done when the audit should be done, there is some comfort factor there, and the stuff is published, you get to read it. We're responsible, but we want to be able to give you the information that you need to keep track of us, because, you know, it takes everybody in this room. We live here. I'm upset as everybody else. And we recognize some of these faults and things that were going on again last year. So, you know, we have, again, I said, Christine is the only full-time employee. Right at the end of the day, there is nobody, we're doing all the work. We are, the board, is taking the responsibility to do all of the functions, working with her and helping Christine.
You'll hear this in Leslie's presentation.
And Leslie still has to do her piece, but listen, we're on the same side here at the end of the day. And again, we're gonna be as transparent as anything for anybody in this community that wants to know.
I got a question, but I gotta say, I am, as an auditor, I'm dying to find something. Like, I really am, and like, you know, every time I you know, a couple times, I think I had something, you know, and a lot of it is just bad accounting. But I'm, just my auditor fire wants to get this. You know, so, don't live here, but I'm with you.
Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, well, I think you guys are doing a great job, but one of the big problems is, as you know, I come to the meetings, you have 7, 10 people here.
Yep.
The people in this village have to get off their butts to get to these meetings, to get involved in what's going on. And there's no
You know, if you can't make it, we do the YouTubes, right? We record all of these meetings, we record all of the other meetings, planning, zoning, comprehensive plan. So I know it's tough for everybody. It's the world we live in today. But you know, the information is there. If you hear something, it sounds crazy, call. We get phone calls every day on every corner aspect of whatever they're thinking about. And sometimes they, well, it's not that important. Every call is important. Everything that's going through your head about this village is important. And we're
Also,
here to support that.
the resident letter that was mailed out, everyone should have received it. In that letter was the link to the YouTube channel where you can find every meeting uploaded. The website link is on there as well, and our official Facebook page link is on there.
How much does it cost to send a mailer out every time we send a mailer out?
Don't know. I could get that info for you.
Every resident gets a letter, there's really no numbers in there, should we probably see if the money?
There's been two.
Well, you know what,
I know
Vinnie?
there's two mailers.
That comment goes round and round, because if everybody joins CTY, but a lot of people don't join CTY. If everybody read Facebook, we wouldn't have that problem. If everybody read the website, went out there every couple of days, a day and a half, and read that to see what news was going on, they don't. So the only way for us to get to everybody is to do the letter. Because the last thing I want to have somebody in the audience sitting there saying, well, why didn't you send a letter? Well, I know it's snail mail, it's old fashioned, but it goes to people that don't have email, don't have a computer, don't understand Facebook, don't have a phone that's even capable of doing it. So we're trying to cover all the bases. We know it costs money, but look what it generated.
Well, in the first letter you sent out the QR code to take your survey for the comprehensive plan.
Right.
In the last YouTube video I saw, like 14 people took it or whatever it was.
Oh, no.
You know, it wasn't that many though.
No, there were over 100 that took that survey.
100 out of how many residents?
That's the problem, exactly.
Well,
We sent the letter out,
There
spent
you
the
go.
money, and you know.
Well, you know what, the flyer that's sitting on the
I'm
table,
saying that we're wasting money, sitting on a mailer that nobody even looked at, and didn't deserve it.
the flyer sitting on the table is an invite for everybody to come next month, for you to actually have some real input into what you want to see in this village in the next 10 years. That committee has been working diligently.
I'm not saying that they haven't, but
No, I'm
you
not.
sent the letter out, and nobody looked at it, and we wasted money.
They did look
And
at
nobody
it.
took the survey, 100 people.
Well, no, I said it was over 100 people.
Out of how many residents?
But you know what, Vinnie, again,
Do you
if
understand?
it's,
That was
if
an
we
addition
don't,
into the letter. That wasn't why the letter went out.
if we don't send it
That
out,
was an
you don't
opportunity.
know. And it's up to you to make the decision to come to the meeting, or go on the YouTube, or follow the instructions of what we've asked. It's pretty simple.
I have a
But
better
again, this
question.
is
Do you
just-
use a voucher when you mail the stuff out? It's all accounted for in the right funds and everything? Because as long as it's in the right funds now that we paid for the postage, I'm good. Good.
Envelopes are envelopes.
Good.
Paper's paper, and we print, and we use
Some
black ink.
municipalities, broadcast live, these meetings live.
I'm sorry?
Some municipalities broadcast the meetings live, like the live streaming.
Well, I don't know, we've been doing the YouTube. I don't know what that might bring to the table, but, I mean, we do the YouTube, it's easy enough to click on that at any point in time.
As far as the live streaming, I think I can answer that a little bit better. It would take a different background technology on our website to do that, as well as hiring, spending money for a company to set up the audio to do that. And quite frankly, we're just not looking to spend that money right now. I'm not saying that it won't happen further down the line, but until we get our finances a little bit more straightened out, I really am not comfortable spending the money on it, to be quite honest.
Anybody in the audience can do it. You can do it right on your phone. There's a legal parameter around it.
So we don't wanna
You can't-
spend that money, but we're gonna give you guys increases.
You know what, let's,
And this
let
girl,
them-
Hey, Vinnie, let's just get, let us get through the, let us,
People signed up
He brings
for
up valid
comments.
questions every
Vinnie,
meeting.
Vinnie,
Let's-
hate to cut you short. Let us finish the
For what
presentation.
reason? We're in a deficit, obviously, this guy's saying we're bleeding money.
Vinnie,
We'll pay half the
they've,
pickleball court.
they've cut you off. You can speak later.
Thank
Let
you.
them finish.
Thank you. Okay. Brandon?
Who's that?
Any questions?
I'm the attorney.
How much is he getting?
Ask them.
250. Anything else? You know, I mean, if you're gonna run the business, you gotta run it hopefully the right way. You know, you could sit here and say, what corners do you wanna cut? What corners do you wanna keep cutting? You know, I don't know. If you have the time, Vinnie, come down, spend a week with us. Come down and help us answer phone calls, fill out papers, answer calls, go to sewer main, go to water problems. Help us. If you have the time, we're looking for some help. We can't hire full-time people that we need. That's disgusting. That is disgusting. The board is picked up the load of everybody that should be in this building. Everybody. And if she was alone, she'd be in a psych center right now. And it's no, I mean, it is, and you know what? When people come to the door, or you call the police, what do you want? You want the car there. You call the fire department, you want the fire department there. You want the phone here to ring, you want somebody to pick it up. That's what we're doing. We're trying to supply customer service. We're trying to elevate this place so it's back on its feet, it can run by itself, and future down the road, next year, the years after that, whoever wants to sit up here, my God, will help. We're not gonna do with some other things that we've done, hiding the information, burying passwords, not giving you the information that we had to spend weeks trying to retain and try to get systems back up and running.
And never did.
And never did.
And had to
So
start
we
from scratch.
we abandoned half of the stuff that was here. So we're trying to make this a great place to work for the people that are here, and at the time we can bring them in, when it's the right time, that's what we'll try to do. We advertise the jobs, and we're just trying to make it a really, really good place and make you guys proud of the job that we're trying to do. And we'll always have issues here and there, no doubts about it. But we're here, the phone numbers are here, the door's always open, meeting anytime, we're here. I'll give you 24/7. Whatever anybody wants at any time.
Seems like you have a lot of talent in this audience, maybe volunteers to help you.
I just said that. I mean, we're available, got a good accountant over here.
Volunteer.
Yeah. So, I mean.
You're hired.
Fill in an app, hang on.
We don't need that.
No, we don't need that. So,
Full-time though, just
okay,
just civil
if it's all
service.
right, we'd like to get on to Leslie so she can do her presentation. And then, are you finished?
Yeah.
And Brandon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
What's that?
I hope you find something.
But anyway,
You'll probably see me in future meetings, so I'll be around.
do you have the clicker? Sir? That's the clicker, and if you wanna use a.
So we still don't know how much they're gonna raise our taxes.
You're gonna find out. You're
Pretty here now.
gonna find out. Just give me 1 second.
Take your, thank you.
Okay, if we could just have your attention for Leslie's presentation, thank you very
Guys,
much.
if you're cold, we can shut that. I know you want to get cold on that there.
Thanks, everybody.
My first two slides just explain.
Keep it down. Thank you very much.
My first two slides just explain the budget process that we encountered this to prepare the 24-25 budget. So the mayor, board of trustees, and all the department heads met over the past few months to compile the 24-25 village budget. Each department head submitted their budget to the mayor, board, and myself with their projections at the end of November. As we mentioned before, this was never done during the past administration. The mayor, the board, and myself review each department's budget request line by line for reasonableness. To lessen the tax increase burden on the residents, again, as we mentioned before, due to past administration, the mayor and the board worked diligently to reduce expenditures as needed. The current administration, as we've mentioned before, has been very transparent with the residents about a large tax increase for the fiscal year coming up for 24-25. As previously mentioned by the mayor and the board, this is due to a minimal to no tax increase over the past 6 years. The water and sewer funds will also experience an increase in rates due to minimum increases over the past 6 years. The mayor and the board assessed each budgetary expenditure line to reduce the burden on taxpayers. And as we mentioned before, with the deficit financing, the 24-25 reflects a interest payment of $309,000 on the $4.4 million. And at this time, we do not know what the future principal and interest payments are on the debt that's going to be rolled into a bond. So here's a summary of the budget. I apologize for the typo on the wall. The preliminary budget was posted to our website on January 8th, 2024. This budget for 24-25 reflects a 21.74% increase in property taxes, a 21% increase in the water rates, a 19% increase in sewer rates, and some factors that are affecting these increases, again, minimal to no tax increase over the past 6 years. Health insurance premiums increased, single rates increased 10.5%, and the families increased by 9%. The New York State retirement invoice for employees and police increased $26,000 for the employees' retirement and $106,000 for the police. Department heads were involved in the budget process this year for 24-25, so the expenditures are reflective of true costs.
Did this get lost in the printing as well?
Save the comments, please, and let her finish. Thank you.
I can't see it, I'm trying to read it.
You have it, they're copies in your hand.
It's not in there.
Can't see it.
Not in here.
Okay, we'll commit.
It says 21.74%.
21% is all the village.
That's what it says. The rest of what I couldn't see.
90% to
Continuing. If you just give me one, we'll check out that, I have a feeling what happened is if it was printed, the second page, or the back side of it wasn't done in duplex is what I'm thinking on a few pages that were recently, updated. So,
Could you reread the increases though? We can't see
yeah,
it.
so we just slow down a little bit. She'll read this out again, we'll post this so you, again,
No,
have
it is right there.
the information.
It's here.
Folks,
21.
it's right here.
4% increase
On what page? What is it?
property tax.
The pages aren't numbered, but if you open it up
How many
from,
pages in?
it's page,
21.
so see the back-to-back?
09
One,
increase on the water
two.
rates.
It's on the back of the second page.
No, it's on the front, the third page. The factors and
Front on the third page.
It's that one if you're looking for
Yeah,
that.
it's the one they just printed that we haven't got yet. It's the one in the corner.
No, these were reprints.
Yeah,
These
but we
aren't
never got
new.
those. You could just print it right now. Those have been out there, I have it.
Henry has it.
There.
The money that FEMA might take back.
It's the back of the second page.
All right, it's the back of the second page, everyone.
But if it does come back,
Yeah.
a certain amount of time for FEMA to take back their money if you didn't spend it the right way. That's the reason. So that gives you
Okay, is everybody ready? Sorry for that confusion. If someone has the original, if you could just leave a copy here, I just want to what happened, but the second copy appears to have been duplexed and you've got both sides. It looks like the information she's talking about is, if you flip, looks like the front of page 3. Okay?
It's a treasurer's.
Sorry?
That one is a treasurer's. The one.
Oh, that's what I said.
Yeah,
So
that's
if
the one that
everybody's
we're on
ready,
right now.
we'll
Thank you.
resume the presentation from Leslie. Thank you. Yeah, stay on that one, let me do it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna reiterate this slide. So for the fiscal year 24-25, this budget reflects a 21.74% increase in property taxes, 21% increase in the water rates, 19% increase in sewer rates. And factors that are affecting these increases are minimal to no tax increases over the past 6 years. Health insurance premiums increased for single 10.5% and for family 9%. The New York State retirement invoice for the employees are increased by $26,000, and for police, it was raised by $106,000. Department heads were involved in the budget process for 24-25, so the expenditures are reflective of true costs. The first interest payment on the deficit financing is reflected in this budget for $309,000. The non-property tax revenues are budgeted more conservatively. I have a slide, and a couple slides that detail this information. It's based on what has been received to date. The 24-25 budget does not use appropriated fund balance to balance the budget, which has been done in the past. The 24-25 budget reflects necessary repairs for water and sewer operations that have been neglected during the prior years. The original preliminary budget that was presented to the mayor and the board reflected a property tax increase of 36.62%. So through all of our meetings that we held over the past couple of months, we got it down to the 21.74%. This is just a summary of the general fund revenues. It's all detailed in the preliminary budget that was posted to our website on January 8th. So you'll see property taxes are 4.7 million, sales tax 1.16 million, franchise fees 121,000, mortgage tax 110. The money we get reimbursed from the school district for SROs are 268,000, and then just the other revenues, which encompass many different things that are detailed in the preliminary budget. So the total budget is 6.99 million. And again, this next slide just summarizes the expenditures by category. It's detailed again in the preliminary budget that was posted on our website. You have Village Hall, 246,000, municipal services, 146,600, shared services, 462,000, special items, 109, law enforcement, 2.4 million, public safety, 3,000, code enforcement, 62,000, highways and streets are 996,000, parks are 67,000, youth 2,100, culture 16,500, zoning and planning 1,500, community environment 18,000, employee benefits are 1.8 million, and then debt service 540. So the total expenditure budget is the 6.9 million, which agrees to the total revenue budget. So that's a balanced budget. This slide just summarizes the potential increase based on your assessed value with the 24-25. So you'll see the first column is your assessed values, and again, whatever your assessed value is based on your tax bill. So if you have a $25,000 assessment, last year for 23-24, your tax payment was $1,262. With the 24-25 budget, it's gonna go up to $1,534. So it's an annual increase of $272. So you can go down the line. So $30,000, you're looking at a $325 increase. $35,000, $381. $40,435. The $45,000 is $490. $50,000 is $544, and $55,000 is $598, and $60,000 is $653. This is just to give you perspective of what the increase. 21%, sounds like which it is a big increase, but then to put into perspective what your assessed value is, that's what your increase in your property tax bill is going to be. Then we broke it down by monthly, weekly, and daily, just to give you a little bit more perception of what it looks like.
And that includes the deficit.
Correct. This 21.74% increase includes the interest payment on the deficit financing.
But that's not reflected in the budget, right?
That's in the budget.
It is?
Yes.
Where is that?
It's in the debt service. Do you have the budget in front of you?
Yes.
So if you go to, there's a debt service towards the back. Sorry, it's not pages. It just says debt service. There's a bond principal. It's like halfway through. Right before the water fund summary. Oh.
If we recoup any of that $800,000, will that reflect anything in the budget going down next year? Or is that, how would that come into that 800,000 that you're missing?
That would just recoup what the deficits that we're gonna be accumulating
We could
since
take that
twenty
from the
twenty.
bond deficit then, that would reduce that money that you might have to borrow?
How long are we gonna be in the deficit?
One question at a time.
Sorry.
So for,
Can you repeat your question?
The 800,000,
Yeah.
if we get that, would that reduce the budget at all for 24, 25? Because you don't know if you're getting it or not yet.
It won't reduce this budget.
It won't reduce this
No.
budget. What would that money go towards then?
That would reduce the deficits that we have
Already
accumulated from
incurred.
prior budgets.
So that would reduce the 4.4 million that we
Right.
right,
Correct,
audited,
yes,
right?
correct.
right, and remember, we talked about potentially a portion of that money for potentially repairing the roof at the sewer plant. And potentially it could come out of the 190, and we're waiting, we have RFPs out right now to get the cost of doing that repair work. So we'll have a better idea, but as we mentioned earlier, exactly, that money could go back to pay off the interest on the overall borrowed money. Yes.
Did you find the interest payment in the budget?
But the interest payment, the debt service, that's the A fund. So
Correct.
that comes up to the 6.99246.
That $309,000 is in that total.
Is in a 6.990.
Yes,
Okay, so the last unreliable budget, you say, even though it was adopted, was 6.8 million. So we're not that far off, even with that debt.
expenditure-wise, no. It was the revenue, and there's another slide down, when I'll get to it, on the revenues, were really the problem in prior budgets. They were overestimated,
In prior budgets.
correct,
So in this budget, the revenue, this is a balanced budget.
correct. So we're not using the appropriated fund balance that past budgets have used. Sales tax is more reasonable based on actual receipts to date. Building,
How much have you got for sales tax so far?
we've gotten about 890,000,
All right, so
and we're owed one more payment.
you're about 80,000, you're gonna be about $80,000 ahead from what I got today.
We're gonna be about 80,000 ahead of what?
Of what you have in the budget.
Correct, we budgeted more conservatively, because we don't know what next year's gonna, what the money's gonna come in.
They told me they told me the most recent payment was $303,000,
That's correct.
310,505.
Right.
So,
So, and just a note on the sales tax, so I was at the county building yesterday, had a meeting with the county exec and supervisors and mayors. And one of the things he brought up was that the sales tax, end of this year, has softened completely. And normally there would be potentially a fifth check, they call it the Christmas bonus. But the county exec indicated that there will be no fifth check. So if anybody was counting on that, as far as revenue is concerned, you're gonna be in a world of hurt. So again, we're trying to be slightly more conservative, be under it, and if we're lucky enough to get more, and potentially next year doesn't look like it's gonna be a great start. So, you know, it's, again, we're trying to be more conservative than, the previous budget was. So that's what I can tell you so far.
What about if the residents don't agree with this? And what about the thought of dissolving the village?
Can she finish her presentation and then we can get to that?
The next slide is summarizing the water fund budget. So the expenditures, there's administration, 343,000, professional services, 158,000, operations, 115, purification, 140, transmission, 182, employee benefits of 189. Total expenditures are 1.128 million. So that's the, that agrees to what we need to raise for the water meter rents. And again, this slide is the same as the property taxes, just to give everybody a perspective of what the potential increases on their bill. We use the minimum usage of $7,000 per quarter. So if you use $28,000, I'm sorry, 28,000. For 23-24, your bill was $147. It's gonna go up to $179, which is a $32 variance. And again, it's broken down quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily, just to give everybody an idea of the potential increases. Next slide is on the sewer. Again, same type of breakdown for expenditures. You have administration, $360,000. Professional services, $242,000. Special items, $12,500. Operations, $317,000. Employee benefits, $187,000. Debt service, $442,000. Total expenditures are $1.561. And again, that agrees to what the sewer meter rents need to be at the $1.561. And again, same type of breakdown for the sewer bill. So for $28,000, the 23-24 payment was $208, and now with the new rate increase, it's gonna go up to $248. So it's an annual variance of $40, again, broken down quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily. So this slide is on, as we mentioned, throughout the evening, full-time positions that are needed at the village, but are currently not filled, and what it would cost if we did fill these positions. And again, these salaries could be, a little bit low. We kind of tried to be conservative. A deputy clerk, estimated salary is $50,000. Health benefits would be $41,000. The retirement expense would be the $56,000. So the total salary would cost the village $97,000. We did a clerical office assistant, a water sewer clerk, a treasurer, AP clerk, and if we had a full-time mayor or village manager. So all the way to the right, you'll see at the bottom, the total cost for all these positions to go full-time costs $606,000. And again, none of these are filled, so this is all vacant positions. So this is the recommended salaries for the current board. And again, their salaries are allocated across funds. So the mayor, $13,333 per fund, general water and sewer, for a total of $40. The deputy mayor's $20, again allocated across all three funds, and then all three trustees. So that cost is $126,000. So as we mentioned before, the current board is pretty much doing the work of all these positions.
Finish your thought.
And then I just broke it out, the percentage of the total budget. So the current salaries for the general fund that are charged to that fund is $42,000. It represents 0.6% of the budget. Water represents 3.72%, sewer 2.6%, so it's a total of 7.01%.
I have a question. On the trustee salaries, does that translate to $22,000 for the three trustees? Was the 66 spread amongst the four trustees?
Total. For
No,
all
but how much per
three.
trustee?
Three trustees.
Three trustees,
Yes.
so the trustees are making less than the deputy mayor?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay,
I have a question.
that's unusual.
On the header there, it says this is for full-time trustees and stuff. So if you hire people full-time, will the salary go down as the trustees and the mayor?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
you're welcome. Wayne, you had a question?
I'm a little confused on what it appears to me that and I think Henry was just asking this question, that the trustees are making more than the deputy mayor? Or does the deputy mayor get the 6,000 plus 20?
No.
No, it's less.
The deputy mayor will be making $20,000. The trustees will be making each $16,500. The mayor will be making $40,000. The total increases for all of that, I think, amounted to $52,500.
You got the, on that line, because you got the 20,000, which includes the 1,650 for the deputy, that's showing that you have 3 extra seats at $22,000
That was the
instead of
question.
16,500.
As Kathy's asking, that's a question we asked before. The
That's
trustees
showing
have
So
to
each
be
trustee is at
16,500
16,500
for the
times 3,
trustees.
yeah.
3
Is it
trustees,
49.5?
one
Yeah,
deputy
so
mayor,
that's
and 20.
That should be
So it's even better, yeah.
It's wrong.
Yeah, thank you. Make that correction.
Art,
Question on your water and sewer. We contract the water and sewer out for operations. But I noticed that you're taking personal services for employees. Is that part of your DPW employees? You're breaking it down off of 3 like we used to do?
In
Water, you talking water right now, Marty?
Yeah.
the water sewer.
You got personal services
Yes, that's
for your
allocated.
water.
Yeah, that's allocated because DPW now is taking over responsibility for water meter readings
Okay,
and meter replacements. The only thing H2M, and I'm saying only thing, but it's the management of the sewer plant, the water plant, and currently the letters that some of you have received and will probably get over the next year is that DEC and,
the lead and copper.
I'm sorry?
The
Yeah.
lead.
DOH
Lead
is
water
that
bill.
there's a lead and copper survey that needs to be accomplished by October, November of '24. So we've already started that process. We've got Emerson and Secord in that area zipped up in Douglas. We just sent out letters for North Street, Tolman Road, and Goshen Avenue, Phillip and Lark. We gotta hit those, and then we're moving into the center of the village. And the whole process for this thing is that between the residents who wanna do a self-test and take pictures, or you can make an appointment, we come down, and what we're looking at is the pipe coming through your foundation into your home to see if it's lead, copper, or some other metal. And it's really being done because we're trying to identify any or all lead connections. And then, the federal government will then make a decision on potentially how, if they want to have these things replaced, what type of funding they're gonna put in place. Because it will probably bankrupt every town and village if it became a situation where we had to replace every line in every building that had that particular issue. The cost prohibitive would be through the roof. And we're fighting that now in our local governments and raising that issue up to, the state level.
Tom, a lot of that work was done.
I'm sorry?
A lot of that work was done. When we did North Street, when we did part of East Main, part of Ocean Avenue, a lot of them services been replaced with copper.
Yeah, and they've been calling, the ones that have had it done, a couple of people on Phillips have called.
All time ago.
So,
My house
Yes,
had
it
lead
is.
when I renovated it in 2018.
I know we just jumped off the track a second, but we'll,
It's
I guess
going
we
off
answered
the
this
street
question,
to the
so.
curb. Yes.
Yes, and also for the DPW, we're taking over the responsibility, they used to be contracted out for water main breaks and sewer main breaks. We're taking that work in-house again, and we're gonna be doing the work to save thousands of dollars. I can show you a bill or two from contractors that did this work, and it's anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 between vacuum trucks, charging us $500 for fuel, 2 guys at $1,800. It is just out of control. So we're bringing it in-house, and all that stuff's gonna be done by our crews. Go ahead. Sorry.
The next slide just summarizes, some factors to consider on the increases in the salaries for the board and the mayor. So the mayor currently serves the position as a full-time mayor/village manager, works about 40 to 50 hours a week to serve the residents. As noted on previous slides, the cost of a full-time mayor/village manager could be approximately $125,000 including benefits. So there's a budgetary savings of approximately $85,000. The deputy mayor currently serves the position as a full-time water sewer clerk, works approximately 25 hours a week to serve the residents. Again, as noted previously, the potential cost for this position with benefits is $97,400. So there's a budgetary savings of $77,400. The remaining trustees' hours range from 15 to 40 hours a week. One is taken on a role to manage all the boards and committees and supervises the implementation of the comprehensive plan process. This member also oversees the building department and all incoming applications. These hours accumulate to approximately 30 to 40 hours a week. Another board member has taken on a role of purchasing agent / internal audit and works approximately 20 to 25 hours a week to investigate the current cost the village is paying, specifically on utilities, and works with vendors to make sure the rates being charged are reasonable. And the other board member has taken on the role of grant researcher and updating village policies and works approximately 15 to 20 hours a week. The next slide just summarizes the current debt for the village. We have a 2017 serial bond outstanding. The total balance due at the end of this fiscal year, February 2024, is $1,070,000. This was for the sewer reconstruction, village hall acquisition, and village hall construction. There's a principal payment due in the 24-25 budget of $85,000 and a principal payment of $31,606. The next one is a 2023 public improvement serial bond. This was originally issued as a ban back in 2018 and rolled into a bond. This was for the purchase of a sweeper truck and road improvements. The balance due at the end of February 29, 2024 is $865,000. The first principal payment will be due on February 28, 2025 for $86,400, and the interest is $39,660. We talked about the EFC before. This was issued back in 2020. The current balance due on this bond as of February 29, 2024 is $8,795,000. Principal and interest payments due for the 24-25 budget is $300,000 for principal and $110,000 for interest and admin fee. And then the 2023, this is the deficit financing. So we issued the 4.4, as I've mentioned previously. The first interest payment is in this 24-25 budget of $309,000. So this is just some highlights from the current budget we're in. The 23-24 budget overestimated non-property tax revenues of approximately $698,000. So for the 23-24 budget, it was projected to use $408,000 of fund balance to balance the budget. However, as Brendan mentioned before, based on his review and the external audit and New York State, we don't have the fund balance to use to balance the budget. So that's red flag number one. Sales tax for the 23-24 budget was projected to be $1.3 million. Again, based on actual received to date, we project to receive about $1.16 million. So there's going to be a shortfall in sales tax for this budget of $140,000. Fines and forfeitures for the 23-24 budget were projected to be $155,000. This is the justice court revenues that come in. Based on actual to date, the village is only projected to receive $90,000. So there's a shortfall of $65,000. Permits for the 23-24 budget were projected to be $160,000. Based on actual to date, the village is only projected to receive $75,000. So there's a shortfall of $85,000. So this just summarizes for this budget for 23-24 that we're in, the revenues were overestimated by $698,000. So that $698,000 should have really been an increase to property taxes. So if that was the case, based on this information, last year, for this year's budget, 23-24, the tax levy should have been $4,571,943, which would have been an 18% tax increase last year. So that substantiates why the 24-25 budget is coming up by 21.74%.
Great. Thank you very much, Leslie. So, as we discussed, we'll open it up to the floor. Again, we have our chief, our heads of both sewer and water and DPW, if there's any direct questions.
We have the list.
And we also have a list of people who signed up to speak, and if you want to pull them out. And then we can go down the list, and then, again, please, feel free to raise your hand, your name, address, and your question. Thank you.
Okay, Gene Hegarty?
I said my piece, thank you.
Oh, Sean, I'm sorry.
That's all right, I answered almost anything.
Mitchell? You got yours? Kathy Stiganga?
Tommy, I know we
Can you
spoke-
stand up and just give me a
Name, address.
spiel?
Tommy Stiganga. I represent you all as the county legislator, so I've been getting a lot of requests on some of this, and I've had the pleasure of having a conversation with Tommy to help kind of ease the increase, because you guys are doing a phenomenal job. Tommy probably hates me, and he has told me that for getting him to run. But Tommy, one of the questions that just came up that I thought about is you put in the budget that you have people doing actual, what would be a civil service job.
Right.
So, I know we talked about maybe doing not an addendum,
Stipend.
a stipend rather than actual raising the salaries. I've been in government for a long time, you've been, and there's some other people in here, they never go backwards. So if you guys raise the salary, unless you change it in 6 months while you're still on the board, that salary's never going back down. And that's what you're saying that you can do if everything comes in. It would be better to leave the salaries where they are and do that stipend for the extra work that everybody is doing, because once you become fiscally sound and you can hire someone, all you have to do is pull the stipend back and it goes to the position that
Right.
actually is being filled.
Yeah.
And then there's also the question of changing the description of the actual elected position. So
Change the what, I'm sorry?
well, you're changing the description of the elected position. So when we're elected as trustee council, the legislator and stuff, we
Mhm.
have a certain description of what that job entails
Right.
and so forth. And when you're adding actual physical work in something that would fall under human services and civil service and all that, I'm not really sure that it can work that way, and the attorney could probably answer that, because you're changing what the actual requirements of each person is, as far as that goes. So I just wanted to kind of
Yeah.
brainstorm
Well,
on that a little
we,
bit.
as you mentioned that earlier when we spoke, I will definitely check out that stipend piece. But I don't know, Chris, if you have any opinion on a stipend for the increase versus us adopting it, and then the way to change it would be a local law, like we did with my salary when I came in, it was 15, and the previous administration lowered it to 5, and we brought it back up to 15. So I don't know if it would be a local law is the most efficient way of doing it, or a stipend to make it foolproof, safe. And trust me, at the end of the day, if we were able to hire the people that were necessary, then the salaries go down to a reasonable, because we're not gonna be needed to do the job function. Our job will be to manage what we should be able to do, attend meetings, approve and audit bills, and do the normal function and responsibilities of an elected official. We are here versus here, and we just recognize the issue. But again, I don't know, Chris, if you have any
Have you
opinion on that
published
right
the,
now?
the salaries?
Yes.
They've been
Yes.
published? I'm not sure you can change them then.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll check
Don't think the
into
local,
it.
I don't think the law allows them to be changed after they've been published.
Well, we can change it with another local law to modify it, So I guess that would, be the course, but we can dig into that a little bit further.
Yeah, I think you'd get more broad acceptance in the community if it was
Absolutely.
Yeah.
presented that way, because
Which
you're,
way?
as a stipend.
Yeah,
Because
no,
you
I
are
agree.
looking to hire all of these other positions, people, when they go to vote, are going to see a salary and, I mean, if they read it, all of these other positions.
I think as well with that, and this is the piece we need to check. So the way, again, we did this, my salary was 15, it went to 5, I got in, we did a local law to raise it back to 15. So at this point, we can't potentially change it, but what we can do, the next meeting, we can have a local law to basically eliminate it again, bring it back to where it is, and then check in with the stipend, because the stipend is generally, that when I've done stipends, it's normally at the beginning of the fiscal year, right? So when we do our appointments, there's a stipend for the, a stipend for the deputy mayor to make some extra dollars because of the responsibilities. And so I think at that point is where we could do the stipend for the dollar amount. It's good for a year. The only thing, say we went halfway through the year, I think we would, at that point, just need a resolution to reverse it, but I need to check with the attorney. But that, thank you for that idea.
Hal, you're actually next
Just
anyway.
a point of information, you published what the salary would be, but the budget hasn't passed.
Right.
So you can change it before you pass the budget,
I-
and then you won't have all that other work you need to do. You've got
Yeah.
enough on your shoulders
I'm
now.
not sure if that's 100%, because once we post it, I think it's there.
We have
And if we can, trust me, we'll take the stipend route, and, I'm not smoking you, because when we did my raise, or mine, once it was published, it's kinda like, it's there. So, whatever mechanism we can do to get to make it a stipend, we'll make it a stipend.
Kathy,
If
you're
every-
done.
Well, no, I was just gonna say, if you actually, because it's a public hearing, so if you guys voted on it and voted it down, you could immediately put
Well, I'm not
another public
yeah.
hearing. But I'm saying you could do another public hearing for what the actual salaries would be with the stipend.
So I'm gonna keep it open, and I'm gonna check with the attorney, and whatever the best mode is, we'll address it at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Paul Lang,
Yeah, a couple of things. I
name
noticed
and address, Paul, I'm
10
sorry.
Patriot Lane, the internet went up from 5,000 to 12,000. What did we do different with the internet? That we're paying so much more money? Huh?
With the internet,
The internet, the fees for the internet?
okay, so we're removing Spectrum, and we're putting in Crown Castle, which is a dedicated fiber connection with a better and wider bandwidth, because the police department is increasing their ability to include cameras. We're investigating cameras for the parks through grants. We needed a wider bandwidth down here. Our Spectrum connection was basically up and down like a yo-yo, and we were experiencing the same thing at our sewer plant and our DPW plant.
Okay, and along with that, the website, the Village Hall website went from 3,000 to 6,000.
Right, and the reason that went up is that the activity that we're using our webmaster for has increased. So it's not we're trying to get it updated, we're trying to clean it up. And if you've noticed with all our public notices, every time we do that, obviously there's a fee to that. But this guy is the cheapest guy, he's probably watching this, the cheapest guy that we could possibly ask for. And this was a company that was inherently here, could have been here when you were here, Paul.
No,
But he sold the
who is
business.
it? Because it's not on the website. Usually they put it on the bottom of the
It's
website.
Searchlight, and it's $1 a minute, that's what
Okay.
we pay.
Yeah,
And it's on a need-be basis. And
Yeah.
also, all our applications are now being uploaded, so any projects that are coming into the building department are now going to be available for everybody to view, which did not happen prior. There was one project that was posted in the past, so.
I need a desk over here.
there's a desk behind you.
On Park, you have 67,300 you've eliminated, you've eliminated 7 lines there. Topsoil, Sewell Park, Woodfield, and Memorial.
Oh, that all got just consolidated under park maintenance.
Okay,
We
so
didn't need to show all that.
we had 67,000, you got 67,000, previous budget was 100. I mean, are we gonna start working on Sewell? We went from 107,000 to 67,000.
Yeah, Sewell, we're working on obtaining grants. We have a meeting with Assembly Park on Friday. And we're working on grants for that particular park. There was also a grant for Vern Allen Park that we excuse me, would like to modify and use whatever money we can and shift that to Sewell Park as well.
You know what I'm saying, that line really dropped down from 107 to 67. You gonna have enough?
For maintenance?
For parks, on the parks.
If they get the grant.
23-24 was 107,000, and now we got 67,000. Is that, are you gonna have enough? Mulch,
Well,
topsoil?
we just mulched everything this past year. Normally, I think, it's 2 years, Chris, for mulch?
We used to do it once a year, but last year we sprayed dye, or the year before, so since we mulched last year, we're gonna spray dye this year, so that'll cut down the cost of mulch.
Right. And we did the playground mulch already. And we have, I'm sorry?
Landscape fabric, so
Right, and we installed new landscape fabric, so that will hopefully cut down on weeds and grass and all that other stuff. What else?
The 85K from Rieger.
And we do have $85,000 that we had received from Rieger for finally closing out the High Grove and getting those roads dedicated. That's going towards, most of it, excuse me, I'm sorry. Most of it's going towards the pickleball courts.
Tom, I have a point to raise here.
Wait a minute, I'm still going.
Related to what you're talking about, Paul. $107,000 was budgeted, but how much was actually expended? So in other words, yeah, I budgeted 107, but only spent 50. So then, I don't think 107 needs to be budgeted again. That's my whole point. Actual expenditures versus budget.
Well, we looked at what was expended,
I realize that.
and through discussions, I mean, there's no issue with raising it, but
How much did we spend?
That's the question.
Good question.
Out of that
That was
100
based on Brendan's presentation. Right now, budget to actuals is, it's not,
Oh, we,
we're
okay.
still going through stuff, so it's hard to give you a number.
Henry Ponte?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Henry Ponte, 87 Capital. These are directed to Chris regarding the sewer plant. We keep hearing about this roof leak. Who, when the requisitions for payment by, who was the contractor? The GC?
GC Cabal?
On the-
H2M?
Yes.
H2M, yeah.
Okay, well, you guys are the.
We're H2O
Yeah,
Innovation.
right, but who actually built the sewer plant?
H2M was the engineer,
H2M,
yes.
okay. Now, who's certified to the work being completed?
The
Was
project
there an
manager.
architect or
Project manager.
the project manager?
And then this office.
Okay, so who's responsible for the leaking roof?
The roof is on the old sewer.
The old
The
sewer.
old sewer plant? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we actually, funny, we actually had we talked about it to upgrade it, it was like $35,000, $40,000,
Okay,
and we just never pulled the trigger,
all right.
and it
Okay.
that's
So
all.
the answer, I'm sorry, I thought it was the new project. That's
The
what-
state and federal
I'm going, what's going on
government
here?
has money for
Okay.
the sewer plant, and I know they do in others.
For grants?
Yeah, well, yeah, the state and federal government do, like, I remember I lived in one town, it was like 86% of the sewer plant was
Yeah.
paid for by the state and the federal government.
We used a lot of the EFC money for that, for the sewer plant upgrade, it's a 12 million. So we use a lot of that already, so we expanded our capacity, so we're still looking for more grants to.
So they didn't include the old sewer plant with the new one.
Michelle,
Do we
no?
need the new sewer, I mean, the old sewer plant? That's a stupid
I'm sorry?
question. Do we need the old sewer plant?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do, yeah. Village is growing, yes.
Michelle Dillon?
Yes, hi, Michelle, 13 High Grove Drive. We're actually being probably hit the hardest, being the new community. And I had met with you, Mayor DeVinco, and we had talked about possibly the thought of dissolving the village. being that we pay town taxes, my village taxes, it's crazy.
Michelle, can I,
What?
Tom, would you mind, because I spoke with Chris earlier about this today, and he looked into a couple of things regarding this, because, just so you know, our debt does not go away.
I
So
understand that.
let our attorney, maybe answer.
So, if the village dissolves, it would become part of Blooming Grove. I mean, it already is a part of Blooming Grove, but it would become part of the town of Blooming Grove, not within a village. But the debt of the village remains, and there is what's called a debt district that is set up with the boundaries of Washingtonville that takes on the debts, all the previous debts, and it's just imposed as a property tax. So there's no way around there's no way to get out of the debt by dissolving the village, because it's still going to impact your property taxes by operation of law.
Okay, so when that money's repaid, then that's it, right?
Yeah, when the money,
People think that
yeah,
if we dissolve, we no longer have PD, we no longer have a lot of the services you have right now, so people are under the misconception that you're just going to eliminate that village tax. It doesn't work that way.
No,
So
I
the town is going to
understand
have
that.
to compensate.
You have to
for
compensate and work together with the town.
Correct, except you're not gonna have a PD that you can pick up the phone right now and one of them be at your house within a minute or two.
Which is great.
And, you know, I'll let maybe Brian can address that and DPW can address also. Right now, we have shared services, that will disappear, so. What would you like to see happen?
After all this, I'm at $20,000 in taxes, which is absolutely crazy.
Michelle, if I can answer for you, first of all, the town does have tax grievance day. So,
I've already done that. We've all done it on mine.
I'm just saying that you have an option there, just because you went 1 year doesn't mean you can't go another year. Because every year, the, assessment ratio changes, so you can go 2, 3, 4, 5 years. There are companies that you can hire.
I hired a company to
So I'm just saying, these are your other
The
options.
problem is that we're told that there has to be comps in the area. No houses are for sale in our area. People bought, they're staying put, they haven't sold in the
There
last
have
4
been
years.
sales up in High Grove.
I have one, and I was it.
I'm just saying, there have
About
been.
4 months ago.
4 months won't go, the whole community's gonna.
Yeah.
Okay,
We do pay
a
high
couple of things
taxes,
here.
higher taxes.
Pardon? I'm sorry, I don't hear well.
I'm so sorry. We do pay higher taxes up there. They're very cheap.
You absolutely do. Listen, I understand it. New construction always takes the beating. They do.
Maybe it shouldn't be across the board then, when you do the increases. Maybe you should take into account that this area has already taken a hit in the last
Major
few years.
It doesn't work that way. It works off your assessment, and your assessment is based by the town. Actually, it's the state of New York who does the assessed value. We just have the equalization rate.
and by law, it has to be uniform across the municipality.
Wait, before we
Do
hear
we
our
still have
two
other
people
folks that are on the
that side,
list?
and then we'll go to.
We will let everybody speak. If I have to stay here till 1 o'clock in the morning, I may not be very pretty, but I will be here.
Also on High Grove, 12 High Grove, is it Marie?
That's me.
Oh,
I'm right.
I'm good. Getting back to Michelle, I'm a retired person.
wait, excuse me,
Guys, we
I
can keep it
can't
down a
hear.
little bit.
When I first moved into our community, I was paying $11,000 in taxes. The following year, my taxes went up to $3,000. Right now, I am paying over $14,000 in taxes. Wow. I don't have any kids in school. I've never had any kids in school. I've had my house reassessed by the town of Blooming Grove. It only went down $50. I hired an attorney to try to see if he can reduce it again, and he was unable to do that. The point that we're saying is, if we cannot dissolve the village, why do we still fall under Blooming Grove? Blooming Grove does not pay the same amount of taxes that we do. And as our community is based, we have a lot of law enforcement, they're retiring. And it's not fair. I'm from law enforcement. Sometimes I'm gonna have to be forced to move out of my community because I cannot afford to live on my pension and my social security. With the cost of living has gone up tremendously. I've been living there for 6 years. This year's gonna make 7 years. Is there some way, since we cannot dissolve Washingtonville, I can honestly say I am pleased with the police department because I've utilized them several times and they've come to my house. However, I don't think it's fair that we still fall under Blooming Grove.
Okay, so there's a couple things. The way, and we have counsel here who can probably support this, the way New York State is set up, okay? The state sends your loosest regulations, okay? Let me finish, please, take the moment and hear me out. When you incorporate as a village, you get to set a higher level of control. All right, so the only thing you could do is, could you make a separate town of Washingtonville?
Why not?
Yes.
We have
Yeah,
more
why
people
not?
living in Washingtonville. We have
I
like
understand
70,
what
in the high road, at least 73.
71 houses.
71 homes.
Okay, so I'm just saying though, so now we make the town of Blooming Grove. They did this in Woodbury. You have the town of Woodbury and you have the village of Woodbury. You have two separate municipal governments, so they're paying a double tax. First, and the other part of that is Blooming Grove would have to agree. Your neighboring towns have to agree to that.
They don't pay the same tax we do.
Listen, we're all up here, we pay taxes, okay, just like you do.
Not like High Grove.
I pay $20,000 in taxes.
My
Yeah.
taxes on my house are probably, at this point, 13, 14.
It's a lot.
And that's with the veterans discount.
My husband can't retire because of the taxes. We're gonna leave.
We are all in the same
We've
boat.
lived here 25
Also-
years, and we've seen it go from here to here.
Right.
It's crazy, 25
For
years.
Washingtonville.
It's just going more and more and more.
Yeah.
But just look at other things. How much more does it cost you for a bag of groceries?
Yeah, but when you have kids in school, I think that should make a difference.
Yes.
I'm just saying,
We
you
don't,
know.
I think everybody agrees with that.
That has nothing to do with the village.
So,
One at a time, please.
guys, just one at a time.
Over $8,000 for school. And my daughter's 33 years old. I've never utilized the services.
That's, again, that's a different taxing authority. You're welcome to go to the school board meetings and argue with them.
I went to the tax office, the tax assessment office. I'm an attorney and still nothing.
Kathy?
It's like.
Kathy?
One at a time, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, just keep it down a little bit because we can't hear the speakers.
Hi, Kathy Gregg, Acevedo, 35 Woodfield Drive. I have a bunch of thoughts. Dissolving the village would be a process of possibly a disaster. But consolidation of some services would never be a disaster for anybody. That's one. Two, as I sat here tonight and I listened to presentation, it's now like, I'm crabby. It's late. There's no end in sight. So with the deficit and the mismanagement of funds and the A fund and the water spending, I was here. I was one of the few people that was here with Mayor DeVinco asking for a 1%, a 1.5 tax increase. I was also here and gave the previous board their piece of paper that said that they were in fiscal distress. I talked to a lot of people in this community. I also work in the high school. I'm all over the place. I'm also on the town board. The village doesn't have some of the services that the town does. You're right, I live in the village. We pay higher. We all have to start thinking, we're not happy. None of us are.
I have 3 kids still living in my house. When are they ever gonna leave? They're not. They can't afford to. I need them to go. I can't afford the groceries anymore. It's killing me. Okay, that's enough of the comment. We have infrastructure that's a mess. We have positions that we cannot fill. We have, if we really sat down and did the math fun, bouncing a ball around, if FEMA comes back because we didn't do the paperwork correctly, we didn't spend that money right, we could be about $10 million in debt. But we keep continuing, and we keep going, and we're adding more onto it, and we're adding. And some people who have retired so long ago, their pensions aren't going up. We have to start thinking of other ways. Highgrove is through the roof. I'm through the roof. I have about this much property, and I stand there and I watch everybody drive by, and I look at the crazy lady sit outside. But, I mean, we have to stop somewhere, and we have to come together as a town and a village with community members to try to consolidate some type of services for cost cutting. My next thought is, I don't think that none of you really knew what you were in for when we all signed up to run for office, which is fine. We had a little idea. Being an elected public official in a small village or town, you were on call 24/7. We had a fire at Taft. I was on it. Other people were busy. I don't have their number. I called Orange and Rockland. I communicated with Tom. That's fine. It's part of my job. I couldn't tell them, hey, I'm at a flag football game. No, because people are coming to my house like, yo, what happened to my lights? You're on call 24/7. I think that the increase right now that you guys are looking to take is a little bit harsh, just my opinion. I do agree that everybody deserves a little bit of a stipend, yes, maybe not so much of a jump. My last thing is that Washingtonville has events through the events committee. I love myself some events. But those events are not bringing the residents any monies. What the events are doing is draining our DPW and our police budgets, where we're more in debt than when we started. Now, I love it. It's great. A couple of meetings ago, we approved fireworks for 4th of July. I don't want fireworks. I want to be able to go buy my kids an extra cheeseburger. All this stuff adding and adding and adding. We're not cutting. You guys have come in and you're doing some work, yes, but we're not cutting other things. So I think that we need to, before we pass this budget, before we have our next hearing, we need to really sit down and think about the things that we can. One that I know for sure is the courts. Our courts, I don't know what the revenue is. I'm not even sure if you guys know yet what the revenue is. But if you cannot see your court cases, by state law, the town has to see your court cases. And then you still receive those monies.
Right.
That's something cost effective. Which is, we have to start visiting these things because everything does go up. Milk goes up, everything goes up. But people's pensions, you're gonna overtax people, push them out of their homes, the property value goes down, and then what are we gonna be left with?
Kathy, we're already starting to look into the court services.
And we can't say we're overtaxed because we're only compensating for the 6 years. If you add that up, 6 times 3 and then 3.
Do we know
for
what
this
each
year.
community event costs the village?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yep.
And
Well,
I could pick that up and look through it?
Well, what we know is.
We know what we pay in overtime
overtime.
for the police department. We have an estimate of what we're doing on the DPW side, yes.
Do we think maybe we should put like a freeze on things a little bit, maybe?
Well, you know what,
If that's what the people want,
if you don't
you let
want,
us
you don't
know.
want the parade, you guys don't want fireworks, you don't want the Christmas parade, then there'll be
See,
none.
we won't cut
Because
events.
this is what happens, it's a trickle-down effect, right, and everywhere we go. If we don't, if we were to say, okay, event committee, Chamber of Commerce.
How about if we only did one a year? Or how about if we just cut
Whatever
back
you
a
want
little?
is what we will support. So we don't pay for events just for people that don't know. What we do support is the overtime that is needed with the PDW and with the PD and the DPW.
The events.
So the events is a committee,
Mhm.
and they fund the events themselves. But yes, it does cost us in overtime.
It's through fundraising that we raise the funds to put the events on. The only thing the town does pay for is the overtime for the police department and the DPW.
So we tried to keep some normalcy by continuing the events. If you all prefer that we don't, we're not gonna say we're cutting events, because we're not. It's not for us to cut.
We also have a
All we will
disposal
be
company
saying is that we can't pay the overtime. So can the events afford to pay the DPW and PD?
We also brought in a disposal company to help, and we have volunteers that help the DPW with the manpower to set up and break down the barriers,
And he
and
does it
then the
for free.
disposal guy does it for free.
He does it for free.
He volunteers to pick up and clean up.
Does the village earn any revenue from any of those events?
But we give back, so it helps build
Because none of,
the stuff, like that.
Yeah, Bill, I'm sorry to cut you off. None of those organizations, we're not connected to the chamber, and the event committee is standalone as well. So it's not under the arm of the village, it's not part of the village, it's separate. And we do the same for the event committee as well as we do for Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce has how many
And
events?
Blooming Grove does the same thing, they'll assist, we have the sheriff's
We
department.
do assist.
We get the state police.
We do.
And other municipalities, when we go to the state and county agencies, they also help and assist. So we are, and also, Monell Fire Department, we have a fire police division, and they also assist with traffic control and do, really, you know, and out there doing a great job. So it's just, we're not dumping and trying, we're trying to spread it out. And obviously, other agencies are involved in the process. But, yes, there is some cost to having these events and doing them. You know, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, I guess, you know, you go to different communities, everybody, you know, go to Florida, go to Goshen, Great American Weekend, go down to Warwick, see Apple Fest and this fest and that fest.
I'm not saying that
the
it's a
village
bad-
works hard to try to somehow compete because it's good for the local businesses. And
But with a
is there a
fiscal
trade-off?
deficit
Yes.
that we're facing, borrowing $4.4 million and having the taxpayers at a 20% right now, it's a lot.
So let's
I
put it in
love-
perspective, Kathy.
Yep.
We're paying, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, it's about 40,000 in overtime for events from PD? A little bit more. A little bit more.
40,000 for all the
40
events?
For all the events. Chris, do you have an estimated, I thought we talked about 2025?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Okay, so there, you have a real number now, give or take a little bit. All right, about maybe 45 and then another 20?
So 65
About 65 in overtime.
in overtime?
For the year.
For the year.
So, you know, I'm curious, just a show of hands, how many of you would rather us curtail that paying that for a year? Who would like to see it put on hold?
And don't forget, the events are not just the
Nobody?
big ones, it's not just the Whoville and Rabbitville, it's also 5K runs, we have a couple of those during the year.
We
Little
carry a lot.
League
The,
There's about 14 or 15 events that are currently being governed and managed by us. So it's 5K runs for the scholarship runs. It's Little League, it's football, it's ice hockey, it's everybody that is trying to raise money for their kids, for their teams, to travel, to go to the Hall of Fame baseball tournaments up there. I mean,
it's the carnival.
it's all, you know, I don't know, it's all for, it's for the kids at the end of the day. This money goes right back to them. If we start charging, you're gonna limit the type of vendors you have, and for an example, there was something, was it Whoville or Witchingville? One of the agencies wanted to charge $100 extra to do checks, and his background checks, and each vendor had to come up with an extra $100. Vendors were saying, adios. I don't do this anywhere else. I can't understand why in God's green earth this is happening, and we're like days away from this stuff. And everybody basically puked it and said, see ya. So it ended up being a situation where we calmed the waters, we didn't do it, the events happened, the vendors made money, the committees made their money, to continue to do these things. It's not like they're sitting on a pile of money. If they get 2,000, the 2,000 goes right back into the next event. And it just keeps going and cultivates it. But, you know, I think it's a strong part. I know it is money, but I don't know. You know, for everything that we pay, I think it's a worthwhile, you know, investment in our community, for the people, and, you know, for everything else, the kids. You have on the list? Nobody on the list? Just address,
Ryan from the Broad. The water meter revenues, the 1.1, does that include, that's just the meters, the water's going through everybody's residence meters, correct? Does that include the bulk water that we're selling outside town?
I'm sorry, that,
Say that again, Vinnie?
I walk every day, I see both trucks leaving the water plant.
Correct, they pick up 6,000 gallons a clip.
And there's a lot of trucks coming in and out of there, so I'm just curious, is that revenue included in that figure?
Yes,
And how much water are we actually exporting outside the bill?
that really depends, when we get.
And are we selling it at a premium? Because obviously water's a commodity.
Yeah, $20
Everything goes up, so
Yeah.
maybe we should raise the rates on
We
that as
just
well.
did,
We just did, yeah,
Alright.
$18.50 per thousand, or per
Per
gallon.
thousand.
And then, we usually do around summertime, obviously pools, nobody does fills pools. So we do like 100,000 gallons, 200,000 gallons, so it ranges. When it's December, we did like 6 trucks. It all depends on the season, obviously. So it's hard to vary, but you can do a guesstimate pretty much.
All right, question for the water guy.
Yeah.
I run my sprinklers. Is that water going into the sewage plant?
Negative.
Okay, so now,
Storm drain.
maybe to alleviate some of this percentage, the residents that are actually, I know High Grove has a lot of sprinklers up there, myself as well. A lot of other towns have a separate irrigation meter where they're not taxed on the sewer. Is that something we could look for, you know, maybe offset the cost for these people that don't actually water in the grass? Why should I pay sewer if I'm watering my grass? It's not making a difference.
you're more than welcome, we will only be glad to provide you with a meter if you wanna replumb your system, that you can have a separate meter for it.
Where I'm not gonna be charged a sewer charge.
Correct. We have other houses in the village that are only on water, they are not on sewer. So, that's what, they don't get charged a sewer charge, they only get charged for the water that they use.
That should have been,
Nobody's asked me,
it should be a building code where if they're having irrigation, that should be an irrigation.
and we are in the process, and I hate to say this because we keep saying we're in the process, but we have been working over those water and sewer codes for about 6 months now. And that's always an option. If you want a separate meter, we have no problem with that.
Call me.
You know my number.
Good setup.
So I
I mean,
guess,
it obviously takes some obviously plumbing to get that done, and it needs to be checked, because the last thing we wanna have happen is, and it's penalty, fines and everything else, where people then decide to put a valve in and reroute all the water and create another pipe and a loop into the system. So as much as it sounds like
It's like
a
saying
wonderful
somebody
idea
tapped into
too,
40 meters.
you know, all of a sudden we see a reduction, and we are looking at new meters, and we are looking at some software, and the newer systems, you'll be able to manage your own house, your own water, you'll know by every 5 minutes what kind of water you're using.
You also need a backflow prevention certification also. So every year, you just gotta send that to me, and that's all, so. It's not a secret, right?
excuse my ignorance of all this, but when
Can
will
you name
the,
the address, I'm sorry?
oh, so sorry, 2 Hopkinsport in.
And your name?
Donna Murphy.
Thank you.
So quick question, when is this going through, is this something that's gonna be adopted, the tax rate, tax increases, are we still gonna, so what is it? Is there-
Yeah, it's,
just gonna happen,
unfortunately, it's
or
gonna
we
go
negotiate?
through. The thing I'm gonna hold a public hearing so that we can correct the stipend thing with the salaries. And then we will adopt it. It has to be adopted by the end of this month by law, or otherwise we, get slapped.
So is there any, like, negotiation at all with the amounts that you're gonna increase the taxes, or is it just not the done deal?
Well, we've gone from, as the screen said, of the slide, we were at 36%, 37%. and we got it down to where we are at 21.73. We cut a lot, and, you know, I hate to say, you know, we're really at bare bones. Again, by not hiring anybody, we help by hiring the police officers, and that's a double-edged sword, because if you're not covering the shifts correctly, they're gonna be covered by overtime. So that's time and a half versus a regular salary. So, you know, we're not super thick, we don't have, you know, 5 guys on a shift on the police department. Our DPW is stretched now that we've added, bringing everything that was being paid by contractors, that's now coming back in-house. You know, Chris Finnegan works for H2O, they're our consultants to manage and take care of the water system and our sewer system. And there are people that are doing that.
Oh,
Now,
so you have a
he's-
contractor.
yeah, he's not a village employee. And the biggest reason it's not a village employee is that in today's world, to try to find somebody with the proper licensing to do these jobs and be on call 24/7, we'd have to probably add 5 people to staff, if you could find them. And it's, you know, I love this guy, but I can't stand him sometimes, because I gotta pay him. And when I go, what are you doing? And he said, well, you know, and he's maintaining and keeping us safe and keeping the water clean and the sewer plant running at top of, you know, the best it can, so we don't get in trouble with DEC or anybody else. It's, again, it's a double edge, it's a you know, give and take, but, you know, we're thin. I mean, it's Chris is the manager, and we've got one guy running around, basically maintaining, monitoring waters. We get or 3, but the one guy that I see all the time.
You see one guy.
I see the one guy. But, I mean, they go down to the water, they maintain the wells, they take measurements every day, we get a report on that, we get monthly reports, bi-weekly reports, we get reports on the contractors that are taking water, we send out bills on that. You know, it's, you know,
And part of the reason some of our costs are so high with that is we have a lot of deferred maintenance. Chris will laugh because every week when we have our department meetings, I'm like, okay, so which well is broken this week?
and that's you know, that's another really big subject for us. There's a couple of really big priorities that we need to address, and one is the sewer plant, because when that plant was finished, it wasn't finished. We've had electrical problems, we have, what is that crazy device that maintains and monitors everything?
SCADA.
Yeah. It's not there. I mean, this is like a master computer that's supposed to monitor everything.
It was
don't.
it was an option in the budget, they said no to it.
And they said no to it. So we're running around maintaining each individual, I'll call it a module, trying to figure this out. That is huge. And I mean, that $800,000, if we had it, potentially, I don't know, you know, it's vaporized. Our wells, good wells, but we're trying to develop a well in high growth, because it's a deep well. Our wells that we have are only 40 feet deep. It's aquifer. A lot of water, but water drops, and you're only 40 feet, you got problems.
Patrice?
Yeah, Patrice Gatzner, 7 Puritan. Do you happen to know what the tax rate increases are for some of the other surrounding villages or towns?
You know what, I'm gonna let Chris answer that, because yes, we do.
I live in Cornwall.
Cornwall?
Last year, the tax rate increase was 21%, and this year was 26%. Highway department,
4.4 million.
the highway department last year was raised 230%. Town. So basically 50% past 2 years, my taxes got up, and they're not in fiscal.
Thanks for showing us.
Thank you.
That's without a deficit.
And that's Cornwall.
Town of
I mean,
Cornwall.
Cornwall's ridiculous. Come on, let's face it. It just is. Thank you.
I understand high growth because I used to live over on Cardinal in that big greenhouse, so I know what taxes
And
are.
Cornwall, when you put a house up for sale in Cornwall, you're gonna get that price because
Yep.
Washingtonville, much more. I mean, I love Washingtonville. I live here over Cornwall. I love it here. So I know you guys, thank you so much for what you do. I know it's gonna be done.
Thank you, appreciate that. We try every day, and trust me, this was not the easiest thing to do, and I've done it a lot, but, you know, it's just a miserable feeling needing to deliver this type of,
Well, it's tough where we live. I mean, you know,
Yeah, I know.
that new little neighborhood up there, where I
Yeah.
thought I was gonna pay one set of taxes, and then I found out it was not that
Yeah.
set. It was a little bit of
I
an
know.
eye opener, and I'm like you, I'm getting ready to retire, and it's like, you know, gritting my teeth saying, you know, okay,
Yeah.
I have 2 years before I can sell.
And I have the same thing, listen, I turned 65 this year, my husband's gonna be turning 70. I would love to retire, but I look at the same thing, what am I gonna bring in income, and what is it gonna cost me? So,
So we're doing this to ourselves, and I think, you know, we didn't do it, but it was done to us in a sense. But I think we need to look maybe, and just like thinking about, you know, other places that I've lived, and that's maybe a tax base that could bring income, more tax relief to the residents,
yeah.
such as like maybe a FedEx plant or something that we can tuck away somewhere.
So that's a really good point, and Donna has been spearheading the comprehensive plan process. And as she mentioned earlier, there's a flyer over there. There's gonna be a workshop on February 15th. And at the end of the day, what we're doing is trying to figure out what we want and what actually more, what you want this village to be in 10, 15, 20 years. Do you still wanna be a bedroom community? We have a small, they call it an industrial park over here, right? Not a bad thing. We have a small mom and pop downtown area.
And that's why I love it.
And everybody loves that quaintness. But if there's something else that needs to be done, and the things you need to be thinking about is, like Ralph's Auto, that's been up for sale, 6 acres. You know, what's gonna happen potentially there? Nothing's happened, nobody can build right now because we have it on hold.
Thank God.
Until we can symbolize what we wanna do, and then we have to go after and then change all our zoning codes, so we're matching what we're doing on the plan.
Yes.
And
Please, come to this.
that will be the only way for us and you to, you know, again, work together to figure out what we want this place to look like.
Should be fun.
And the last biggest piece of property that we have, 155 acres, is right on 208 South. And it's in the village.
For sale.
And it's for sale, and it's Gazaz's property.
No.
No,
6.5 million, and
it's not for,
that will be discussed at this public workshop. So there are going to be 7 stations set up, and you will have actual real hands-on and input as to what you would like to see in certain areas.
Yeah.
What type of zoning do we need to have, where? For example, we can do like a mixed zoning over on, it's right now that farmland, it's 150 acres, it's zoned RA, residential agricultural
Is it right
zone.
after Dr. Nook's office on the left as you're heading
Yep.
down the road?
It's right, and also right when you're coming down to North, into the village, it's the first thing you're going to see.
Okay.
So I can't stress enough the importance and the leverage that this committee has,
Yeah.
because a lot of changes will be made.
we have ideas in our own head, but
it's
no
It's
one,
what you
we're
want.
staying away from the committee, because we don't wanna
it's
kinda
your
influence
village,
things.
what do you want
It's
here?
your village, your decision.
Also, at the last meeting, discussions came up about our parks. So right now, we had to take the skateboard equipment down from Woodfield. Some people were saying maybe there's another idea. Do we want to put skateboard equipment back in there? So it's an opportunity for you to come, and, you know, we're gonna try to target the high school seniors as well, because really those parks, a lot of it is what they want, what do they need? We need to keep the youth active as well. So basketball courts, there's half the Ahern, Vern Allen Park that is still, what do you wanna see there? We're putting pickleball courts in half, there's still the other half. Maybe basketball?
I just have one.
Just your name again, I'm sorry.
Marie Theodore, I live with 12 Highland.
Right.
I noticed that they paved the roads, Ahern,
Right.
Yes,
by the Brotherhood
Yes.
Winery, but they didn't continue
That's
our
fine.
area.
Right.
Right.
Correct.
Woodfield, is that the community?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starting with Woodfield
Yeah.
and the Hydro.
Right,
We're fortunate to have all roads paved,
correct,
but as we're entering through Avon, there's a lot of potholes there.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of potholes everywhere.
So, one of the
Yeah,
things,
but why didn't they continue?
Well,
money.
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 One last thing, if I can just complain about one little thing.
One more
That
complaint.
is,
One more
all the, one more thing, all the stop signs on Ahern, but the one where that's needed between, where it crosses over Ahern to Tolman, you know, where Tolman goes down. And
Yes.
Yeah.
that needs a four-way stop. One place that needs a four-way stop is there. You take your life in your hands when you're crossing from Ahern, like crossing from Ahern going into.
So stop signs on Tolman Road?
Like a four-way stop as you're going over.
That's North Street.
North Street.
North Street
Tolman,
intersection?
Yeah, North Street.
North Street.
Well, in order to do that properly,
Well,
you
you
need,
could get,
you need a traffic study
Right,
to do that. And
yeah.
according to the number of signs in the village, really are.
Well, if people did 25 like you're supposed to, coming from Taft, then it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
that's it.
I got a question.
George?
Yeah,
George Lanza, 1 Woodfield Drive. Someone was asking, and I don't think they finished asking the question, exactly how long is this gonna be a temporary raise? Do we pay a debt and then revert back, or is this permanent?
Is what gonna be temporary?
The tax?
It's a 10-year loan,
Okay, so we're talking 10 years,
10 years.
10 years.
and after that,
And
we
after that,
reassess.
what we're trying to do is, next year, when we have to convert from a ban to a bond, we're thinking either, in this conversation, because we put that 309 is a big number and it's inside your percentage.
Right.
But that was gonna be paid regardless if it was inside the percentage or outside the percentage. My feeling is I'd like to see it outside the percentage, if we can do that, and just have an extra line on your tax bill, so you'll know, it's 1 of 10, next year it's 2 of 10.
Right.
And it doesn't get commingled into the tax rate, because then I don't know how we pull it out, to be honest with you. Because then you're interfering with normal cost of living, and then you got this, so I'd rather just be a separate line,
Right.
and when it goes away, it goes away.
That's why I
That's the plan.
We will know.
Yeah. And, hopefully,
But remember, that was included in the
In
20.
the
Right.
thing.
Wayne?
Did you just say that this is gonna be like a facilities charge?
No,
No.
no. It'll be, what I'm saying, it's gonna be separate, so you can see it, and you'll know up to, year 1 of 10, 2 of 10, 3 of 10, so you'll know after 10, it's done. If we commingle that into the tax rate, I think it can,
Well, it gets lost.
gets
Right.
lost, and then it's gonna be, well, was that really?
And then you can't lose it in 10 years.
Yeah, and then how do I back it out? So, but if I keep it separate, I don't have to back it out, it goes away.
Have we forecasted, because now you look at 21 and change, plus the water and sewer increases, so that's basically 24%. What's next year look like? What's the next 3 years look like? Are we gonna be doing this again next year?
Doing,
This
not
same
like
number
this,
again?
no,
So this just writes
We're
the
making
ship, and now we're
that
talking
way
2%.
for 6 years here.
yeah, I mean,
Because the way I see it is you got another 800,000-900,000 in principal that you have to start paying on the bond next year, right? That's almost $1 million if the village budget goes up.
for which bond we talking?
For the 4.2.
Oh, yeah, deficit.
Yeah, but
So we're gonna be back here for another 20% next year.
No, we have to get a better handle on what the actual expenses are. We're still writing checks for 2018 bills.
I get that.
So, yeah, so to tell you exactly what,
Are we
what the
talking
expenses
5,
were
we
for this
talking
year?
10 next year, or like
We
where
can't
does the bleed?
We
predict
don't
that
know
right now,
what the
but
borrowing
we're making
is
up for 6 years.
based upon the percentage of when we go out for the bonds. We won't know that. But again, the thought is, keep it a separate line on the tax bill, so it doesn't commingle into the normal cost of living. So if it was 3%, you're up 3%, but this is the fee that you're gonna have to pay because of the borrowing.
And we pray that we get a lower interest rate.
Of course,
Of course.
absolutely. I mean, we were shocked, to be damn honest with you, that 7.4, I was expecting 9, 10, to be totally honest with you.
We got
And as
one of
Brandon, and as Brandon had said, you know, they weren't running to us to borrow the money, because on the other side, those institutions are also audited, and also are scrutinized. So at the end of the day, how in the world can I sit there and have an auditor come to me and I'm gonna say, I just gave these guys $4.4 million, and so where's their financials? Well, they didn't have any. Well, really?
I'm just trying to get an idea of where we're gonna be at tax-wise in the next 3 years.
Yeah.
Understood.
And listen, when he said, under the thumb, we're under the thumb. I mean, we need to report, we had to report our budget to the New York State OCS the first 30 days before we had basically these meetings. So we did it in December. Then we have to also submit 3-year plans, 3-year capital plans, and budget review and reports every quarter for the next 10 years.
I read your resolution.
Yeah.
That still doesn't
Okay,
answer
well,
where
good.
we're going next year and the year after.
So how much grant money is out there that we're waiting to get back?
Treating this like an assessment.
Well, right now at Burn Island Park, there's a grant for $135,000. Some of that money I would like to shift to Sewell Park. We're gonna be talking to our representatives this week, Friday, about grants for Sewell Park. I'm waiting for, just a change here, waiting for New York State Department of FEMA to tell us, give us permission to build that park. So we're preparing, as we're waiting, across from the school, where the houses were knocked down.
So that means the park stuff has to go up, right?
It's not gonna affect budget. It's a grant's a grant. It's a grant. So we're looking for, everything we're talking about is grants. I am looking at a $100,000 grant for the work that we just did on Seacourt and Emerson. It's a DOT grant. That would offset some of the things, and then that would allow us to pave a little bit more roads next year.
The problem with most grants is you have to shell out the money first and then get reimbursed. So if we don't have it to shell out, we can't do that.
And that's why there were really no roads done in the last
I mean,
potential 6 years.
COVID too also set us back.
Yeah, yeah, that didn't help.
So in a lot of these roads, you have to understand, the DPW is doing the drainage work underneath, so when it is paved, we don't have to worry about a pipe collapsing and then all that work was done in vain. North Street in particular, we figured out it's been at least 40 years since that street has been paved. You have uneven piping underneath. One drain may be here, one may be here, one may be here. It's a lot of metal, so the whole street in essence needs to get dug up, repiped, and then they can finally pave it. And anybody who's got anybody going up to the schools, or you're going up to Woodfield, or you're going up to High Grove, what street are you going on? North Street. So imagine having to go 6, 8 months.
Yeah, that doesn't look too bad though.
We're gonna have some pretty annoyed people, and the ambulance is there too.
800 has potholes, but North Street is pretty, it's okay.
Oh, you get them by the winery. I have a truck, I feel like I'm off-roading.
Guys, I really do appreciate everybody coming. Are there any other questions? And if you think of anything tonight, before you crash and put your head on the pillow, again, give us a call tomorrow. Again, happy to
Email, our emails are all up on the website.
whatever you have. All right?
For everything you guys do.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you coming and spending the time. It was well worth it.
Take a flyer.
Thank you very much.
Then you want me to, I don't know if I can pass this right.
It's not coming from the wine, it's coming from ground. That was never there before. ACL went out, tendons went out, testing. Brown, yes, they're gonna do it. Took the ice out, put the bank back, the channels, trying to get the water. Sticker you took on the north side of Ahern, took that, took the ice out. We still have plans to catch basin, where the Chris comes around Ahern, comes around, stops, around catch basin here, and pipe it into the catch basin. There are too many Chris's. There are too many Chris's. All four of us are Chris's.
Yeah, many moons ago. But yeah, I missed it.
I went to the wrote a letter, supervisor, all Christian steps, they knew what was going to
Sleeping in the car. Living a good life. It's kind of rough, you know? Yeah.
What's the matter, Dave?
I've been in a lot. I'm taking something very.
North Street was done by Eddie Fairs, remember? Eddie? That was on the board, that was on the board. Eddie Fairs was the engineer. That was on the board, so 85 or something like
What happened? It's hot? What's that?
was the man.
That frog in my throat. Everybody on the planet has it right now. I was on the phone with somebody today and I was and I knew exactly what it was. It's like, I know that one. Thank you. Oh, I feel great. What's that? Are we going in the executive?
I don't know where they're going.